You don't exist. Take a perk and a talk of that shit. Money swallowed like sis. Did it perfect in the kid. Got a billion who sang on my head. Look at better put on the road I just spent. I know we got $1 million. The devil that shit ain't not cheap again.
Hello and welcome back, fellow anime lovers, to MangaMuse. I am delighted to have you join us once again in the world of fanfiction and fantasy. This is the third part of What If Deku Finds VENOM Symbiote in MHA. Special note, this fanfic is written in a masterpiece of Ultimate Demon Beast 65 and somebody on FANFICTIONnet. Do check and support the authors too. Now smash the like, share and subscribe button for more. Also press the bell icon so that you never miss such great parts. Thanks for the introduction. Now let's dive into the world. I will only act when you allow me to. My cute little host the figure replied before bowing. I live to serve you, my kin, my sister. So what do I call you? Toga asked with a grin. It could be something cute and simple. But you're already cute enough for the both of us, the figure replied. So I'll be the ugly and wild side of who we are. A hunter who lusts for blood, you may call me Carnage. Kiyashi Ward Shopping Mall, famous for selling various items and objects that not only accommodated the average person, but quirks of the strange and unique variety. Some say the mall's structure looks like the letter J with ramps and bridges intersecting that allow people to cross between the floors. Eddie found the place easy enough, especially with how unique the building's shape was. Well, it looks like we found the J building, Eddie remarked, and now only 24 buildings left. Venom said within Eddie's mind. Now, you know the drill, Eddie said sternly. The ferret said we could go so long as I remain hidden. I don't forget things, Eddie, otherwise we never would have found those bodies, Venom said with an annoyed tone. Before Eddie could say anything, he heard some familiar voices. Oh man, do I love this place. It's got a ton of different stores to shop at, and they're all super cool and hip. Kiyashi Ward Shopping Mall. This voice definitely belonged to the energetic moth-like Ishido who was in the mall with the other students of Class 1A minus Asui, Bakugou, Aoyama, Todoroki, Shiro, Koda, Ajiro and Sato. They carry designs for all body types, and have a range of gear from teens to seniors, the green-haired Midoriya muttered as he descended into his tangents once again. You're going to scare the children, stop. The deep voice of Takoyami advised Midoriya, hoping his words would reach his classmate. Eddie then finally decided to approach the class, then let out a smile as he waved to all of them. Hey, how's it going, kids? Eddie, you made it, Uraraka said cheerfully. Yo, Mr. B is in the house, Kirishima exclaimed. Hey Eddie, Ishido greeted excitedly, waving a hand back at him. I'm glad to see that the principal let you come today, Midoriya said, who snapped out of his trance when Eddie arrived. But what about Venom? He has to stay hidden, can't afford to attract unwanted attention. Eddie replied, I suppose that is for the best, Mr. Brock, Ida said before adjusting his glasses. Well, aren't those UA students? One of the bystanders called out, gaining the attention of other local shoppers. 1A, a male shopper exclaimed excitedly. I saw them on TV, another shopper remarked. Looks like these kids are famous, Eddie. Venom commented. What do you expect? They survived a villain attack, a story that the media gobbled up like a chocolate parfait, Eddie said. Yes, you would know, Mr. Journalist. Venom teased, to which Eddie just sighed in annoyance. The sports festival was so good. All three of these shoppers shouted. Uraraka then laughed nervously before speaking. I can't believe that they still remember that. Sports festival? Eddie asked the kids, confused. It's an annual competition the school holds every year when students participate in order to show off the fruits of their training and quirks. The festival is often used by pro heroes and agencies to scout for students who show potential in becoming sidekicks, offer internships, or apprenticeships in the case of those from the support course. Takoyami explained. Oh, so like the Olympics but superpowers. Are the Olympics even a thing anymore? Eddie wondered. The Olympic Games were discontinued after the percentage of people born with quirks reached over 60%, and so the games were deemed obsolete, given that it was seen as unfair to have superpowered athletes and quirkless athletes competing in the same sports events. Yaoyorozu explained. Yeah, definitely would have been unfair for both sides, Uraraka commented as she scratched her head. The sports festival is pretty much the second coming of the Olympics, Kaminari said. Maybe we should compete next time, Eddie. Venom exclaimed. We'd make a killing and get scouted by an agency. Yeah, no. The sports festival is for kids and non-criminals only, Eddie whispered. I want to track down a new duffel bag to bring to summer training, Gyro said to Yaoyorozu. Oh yeah, maybe the two of us should browse together, Yaoyorozu offered with a gentle smile. Let's see, where can I get a lock-picking kit and a small drill? Minta said, looking at the surrounding shops. I really hate that small purple kid, Venom said with disdain in his voice. I'm not exactly a fan either, but he's still just a kid. Eddie commented, guess I should probably buy some outdoorsy shoes for this thing. Kaminari said to Hagakure. Oh, that's smart, me too. Hagakure retorted. The guide said your shoes should already be broken in though. Ida exclaimed, to the bewilderment of Uraraka and Midoriya. But wait, perhaps it's a mistake not to factor the utility into the equation. So then why do we split up and look around? We can meet here again when we're done, Kirishima suggested. Great idea, Ashido said with a smile. Perfect. Let's say we're all back around 3. Kirishima asked. Sounds good, said all of the students. Soon, pretty much all of the group had gone off to explore and look at the different shops, leaving only Midoriya and Uraraka with Eddie. Uraraka stared off into the distance while Midoriya was awkwardly standing there in silence as he watched most of his friends leave. Eddie puts his hands on his hips and was surprised yet not entirely surprised either. Teenagers, Eddie muttered. Always thinking about themselves first and rushing in without a thought, Venom remarked. Looks like it's just you, me, and Eddie left. Midoriya finally said. Yeah, Uraraka said simply. Hey Eddie, are we being a third wheel right now? Venom asked. Third wheel? What are you talking about? Eddie asked, loud enough for Midoriya and Uraraka to hear. Did he say third wheel? Both Midoriya and Uraraka exclaimed. The broccoli boy and round-faced girl are dating, right? Venom asked curiously. What is he saying about us? Uraraka asked nervously. He thinks you're a couple, Eddie said bluntly. This answer caused both Midoriya and Uraraka's faces to turn red as tomatoes, to which Eddie winced realizing how awkward it was now between them. So Midoriya said, trying to change the subject. What are you going to shop for today? I want to find a few heavier wrist weights so I can up my training. I mostly just need bug spray, Uraraka said. However, Eddie's words and an image of Aoyama appeared in her mind. Is it because you like him? Uraraka formed a smile on her face before she started to blush once more. Yep, gotta keep those pests away, she exclaimed as walked away, turning her back on Midoriya and Eddie while rapidly waving at them. You mean me? Midoriya panicked as he pointed to himself. You're so stupid, Aoyama. That's not it at all. I don't think Uraraka thought as she ran off. I don't think she was talking about you, kid, Eddie said, putting a hand on Midoriya's shoulder. I wouldn't worry too much about it. She likes him. Round-faced girl is in love with the broccoli boy. Venom exclaimed with glee. Pipe down, you've already made the situation weird enough as it is, Eddie said with a groan. We came together as a class, Midoriya said with a shrug. But here I am all by myself, at least I would be if you weren't here, Eddie. Eddie's eyes became larger and pure white with black outlines for a brief second, making Midoriya start to sweat nervously. And you too, Venom, sorry, Midoriya said as he wiped his brow. Well, what a surprise. I never thought I'd see the two of you here, a familiar female voice said behind them. Eddie then turned around, as his eyes widened in surprise and awe. Behind him was the number 15 hero Thundermane, but she was wearing a blue tank top that showed off a bit of her waist, black leggings that stopped halfway down her thighs, and had black and white tennis shoes. When they first encountered each other, she was in costume and in danger, so he wasn't paying attention to how attractive Thundermane was. But out of the costume and in public, Eddie couldn't help but stare. So, what are you exactly doing here with the kid? Thundermane asked Eddie, trying to get his attention. Eddie, Venom yelled. Huh, what? Oh right, you. Thundermane, right. Eddie asked awkwardly. Yep, I'm surprised you forgot about me so soon, she remarked with a smile. Anyway, like I asked, what are you doing here with him? His class invited me, Eddie replied, ignoring what was probably the point of Thundermane's question. Wait, what do you mean by that? Thundermane asked, squinting her eyes a bit. They didn't tell you what happened after you took me to the station, Eddie asked, surprised. Informed by whom? Thundermane asked again. Care to explain what's going on exactly? Invite her to get coffee with you, Venom barked. Yes, sure, Eddie replied before sighing as if to say, I can't believe I'm doing this. Would you like for me to explain over coffee? Sure, let's go then, Thundermane said. Sorry, Midoriya, I'll catch up with you later, Eddie said to the green-haired teen. Maybe go and find Uraraka and see if she's okay. Alright, Eddie, I'll see you at 3 then, Midoriya said with a nod. Eddie nodded back before he followed Thundermane to a nearby coffee shop. They sat down at a table as they waited for their coffee to be made, to which Eddie couldn't help but glance at the electricity-themed hero again. Before you do explain yourself, however, I think it's time we introduce ourselves, Thundermane stated. I'm Jasmine Azul Cabello, but just call me Jasmine. Edward Charles Allen Brock, but just call me Eddie, Eddie said as he extended his hand to Thundermane. Heh, nice to meet you, Eddie, Thundermane said as she took his hand and shook it. Moving on, what's going on with you? Why are you out and about even though you're ... you know? Well, I guess the simple explanation is I'm on parole for good behavior, Eddie replied. Longer explanation, UA are keeping me out of prison so long as I cooperate and test their little redemption program. That's certainly the first time I've heard of this, Thundermane said. Do you know if anyone else besides the staff at UA was told? The commission knows, they had to approve it, but I think they only did it because they're scared of me. Or rather scared of him, Eddie replied, pointing to himself. Wait, your quirk is sentient? Thundermane asked. Like that kid with the shadow bird thing at the sports festival. Well, see, this is going to sound a bit weird and insane, Eddie said, starting to come up with the right words. But I swear that I am telling the truth. How weird are we talking here exactly? Thundermane asked with a brow raised. Like, I don't know, aliens in parallel universes, Eddie replied before wincing for a few seconds. That does sound really weird, Thundermane finally said. So what? You're telling me that you're from another universe or something? From a universe in the 21st century, where no one has powers and some mad scientists thought it would be a good idea to bond aliens with humans, Eddie replied. That far back in time? Thundermane asked, surprised before leaning closer and lowered her voice. And I'm guessing what you have is one of those aliens and not a quirk, right? Pretty much, Eddie replied with a shrug. I'm still having a hard time believing this, Thundermane sighed, scratching her head. Yeah, I didn't think you'd buy it either, Eddie said. But that's my story, though as far as the kids know I'm just a quirkless guy who's the host of an alien. Well, I guess as long as they don't know about you during the Hasu incident, Thundermane said, but before she could say another word, one of the baristas called her name, to which she stood up and walked towards the counter. Be right back, Eddie nodded before scratching his head. You mind telling me what you're trying to do? I saw how you looked at her, Venom retorted. We barely know each other, plus we're trying to get back to our universe. No point in mingling with someone we won't see again, Eddie explained. But you have been so lonely since Anne tied the knot with Dan. Maybe it's time to move on and find someone else, Venom suggested. In case you forgot, we're still fugitives back home, so I doubt I could have a love life even if I wanted to, Eddie argued. Hey, here's your coffee, Thundermane said as she came back with both of their drinks and sat back down on her side of the table. Thanks, Eddie said as he took a sip of his coffee. So, you're out shopping too? Yeah, I'm planning to go to the Philippines for a couple of days, Thundermane replied. Figured I'd buy a few things here first before leaving. What's in the Philippines? Eddie asked curiously. My family, Thundermane simply replied before taking a sip of her own coffee, then spoke up again. I want to visit them after what happened that night with Stain. Right? That crazy bastard, Eddie said. The crazier, the better, Venom remarked. I still hate him for what he did, and I'm not just talking about the Hasu incident, Thundermane continued. And I can't stand that philosophy of his at all, but I guess that near-death experience made me realize one thing. And what's that? Eddie asked. That I should be there helping my family and community back home, Thundermane replied. I know I have sent them money to fund maintenance and construction, and I do contact my family occasionally. And I know it's kinda part of the job, and I still want to stay as I'm living my dream to be a hero here. But I feel bad for not at least taking one day to help them for the past couple years. I mean, I can't fully relate, but I do see that your family means a lot to you, Eddie said. They really do, but like I said, I just never took the time to go back. After my first visit, I will work something out where I can visit and still do my job here, Thundermane said as she stretched her arms upwards, to which her tank top lifted and showed more of her waist before taking another sip of her coffee. Eddie glanced at Thundermane, before Venom then forced his host to make an audible whistle, to which he covered his mouth. Thundermane slightly blushed before giving Eddie a small smile. Heh, I already noticed your gaze, but I guess you needed to let that out at some point, she remarked. Or did your alien somehow make you do that? I mean, I was thinking about it, Eddie admitted awkwardly before having more of his coffee. Didn't mean to do it though. Whatever you say, Thundermane said, then took another sip of her coffee. I'll say this though, it's nice not being hunted by the authorities for once, Eddie said. Well, you do have a new start because of this program after all, Thundermane stated. And I thank you again for saving me. Don't mention it, Eddie said before sipping more coffee. So, assuming you really aren't from here, what do you think of this world? Thundermane asked. It's nice and colorful, the quirks and hero stuff is pretty cool. My 12-year-old self would love it here, Eddie replied. Guess you don't have much besides the aliens where you're from, Thundermane asked with a grin. I had a life once, but I lost it because of the mistakes I made, Eddie replied. Now it's just me and Venom against the world. Oh, I see. Must have been pretty rough, Thundermane said. Well, it helps that you have no one to go back to, Eddie said before he finished his coffee. Thundermane didn't say anything, only giving a nod towards him, and finished her own coffee as well after a couple of minutes. She then spoke up shortly afterwards. Thanks for the coffee, Eddie. Guess I'll see you around after I come back. Yeah, hopefully I won't be gone when you get back, Eddie replied as he stood up from his seat. I hope so too, Thundermane said, standing up as well. Welp, now it's time for me to go shopping for gifts and supplies. Catch you later. She then gave him a wink and smile as she walked away before turning her head back to face where she was going. Eddie blushed a little before he started heading back to where Midoriya was. He heard Venom humming the old nursery rhyme Kissing in his mind, letting out a groan as he kept walking. Yeah, go ahead. Being real mature right now, Eddie said sarcastically. Come now, Eddie, your heart rate was a lot faster when you were with her, Venom remarked. As Eddie was heading back, he felt someone bumped into him, which caused the San Franciscan to stop in his tracks before turning around. The individual in question was a man wearing a black hoodie and pants with red sneakers and had pale blue messy hair from what he could make out. What an asshole, Venom yelled angrily. Eddie was tempted to call out the man for bumping into him, but he decided to focus on getting back to Midoriya. As he made his way back, he then saw both Midoriya and Uraraka sitting at a bench in front of indoor plants, with Midoriya looking as if he had been hurt or upset by something, causing Eddie to rush over to the two students' location. Hey, what happened? Eddie asked. A villain showed up and hurt Deku, that's what, Uraraka replied. We need to call for a pro. Shit, I was just with a pro, Eddie exclaimed. Wonder if she hasn't gone too far. Maybe I can track her, Venom offered. You can do that, Eddie asked in surprise. I told you, being here has forced me to evolve, so maybe I can pick up her trail, Venom said as then started to concentrate, to which Eddie's eyes started to glow a faint yellow as his vision changed, with the world appearing faded and dark while the people around him were surrounded by a colorful glow. Whoa, this is crazy. Wish we had this power back home, Eddie remarked in amazement. So what do I do? The coffee shop. Go back there and a trail should be present that will lead us to her, Venom explained. Kids, go and report what happened here. I'm going to track down Thundermane, Eddie said. Midoriya and Uraraka both nodded as they headed off to go and find security. Eddie then went back to the coffee shop and over to the table where they sat. Sure enough, there was something they could see, glowing prints that looked like surges of electricity. Is this her trail? Eddie asked. She has electric powers, right? So perhaps it is her. Follow it and see where it leads, Venom replied. Eddie sighed before rubbing his hands together and started to follow the trail. The trail Eddie followed led towards one of the escalators going up to the second floor, then went across the walkway to the other side of the mall. And after passing a few more shops, it went inside one of the larger clothing stores. Eddie followed the trail inside of this particular clothing store and tried his best to find Thundermane, hoping she wasn't in the middle of trying stuff out. As the trail seemed to be ending, Eddie saw Thundermane browsing through some clothes in the women's section. Jasmine, Eddie called out. Thundermane hummed before turning towards Eddie. Wow, you missed me already. A villain was spotted by one of the students I was with before. The bastard threatened them, Eddie explained. Thundermane's eyes widened before her expression was more determined and gave Eddie a nod. Crap, I'll notify the nearby pros and evacuate the area, she said. Go back and gather the students that came here. Gotcha, Eddie said with a nod as he then went to go and find the students of one of that were inside the mall. Midoriya and Uraraka had reported the incident, to which the mall was temporarily closed. Thundermane had helped security evacuate the civilians before the police and local pro heroes arrived. Eddie stayed with the students as the authorities started to search the property, but found no signs of the villain that Midoriya had identified as League of Villains leader Tamura Shigaraki. Eddie saw Thundermane exit the mall and approached her when she got close enough. Did you find any sign of this Shigaraki guy? Eddie asked. No, none of us could find him or any traces of him being here, Thundermane replied with a nod. Some even checked beyond the perimeter and couldn't find him. Shit, but at least Midoriya and the other kids weren't hurt, Eddie said. Nezu and All Might would kill me if someone happened to them while I was present. What about you? Did you notice anything off as you got the students together? Thundermane asked. Not exactly, no. Shigaraki must be long gone from here by now, Eddie said as scratched his head. Alright, me and some other pros will do what we can around here, Thundermane sighed. Thanks for informing me about the villain, Eddie. No problem, Eddie said with a shrug. Yeah, no problem, Jasmine Venom teased. Look at you two, on a first-name basis and everything. Shut up, man, Eddie retorted, annoyed by the symbiote's antics. What did he say? Thundermane asked as she overheard Eddie. Nothing important, Eddie replied nervously. If you say so, Thundermane said before walking away and waved him goodbye. Eddie let out a sigh of relief, though he knew that things might only get more and more difficult, especially if he had to deal with villains. While the other students went back home, Eddie accompanied Midoriya to the police station for questioning. Eddie and Venom had not gotten much exercise or a chance to fully test and use the additional strength and abilities, so upon request, they were allowed to do some training on school grounds. They chose Field Gamma because the various pipes, silos, and towers were perfect for climbing, enjoying the feeling of leaping and zipping across the field like a primate. Venom, now fully transformed, leaped between two rooftops before quickly dashing over to several pipes which he quickly zipped between, making sure not to land the incorrect way in order to prevent himself from slipping. Venom leaped into the air before projecting a tendril from one of his arms and grabbed one of the pipes with it, zip-lining forward before letting go and grabbing a nearby pole with another tendril he created to make a sharp turn to the right before landing on a large pipe. Venom looked at his surroundings as his eyes glowed yellow, in which he saw the trails of various students who had been on this training field before, while then spotted the glowing outlines of what looked to be robots on the ground. Venom grinned as he leaped forward and used two tendrils to zip line between each of the pipes as he headed for an open yard full of robots. Meanwhile, some of the staff, including All Might, were watching over the session using the Jumbotron. They watched as Venom charged into one of the robots, hitting it with a shoulder bash, but the robot blocked using one of its arms, so the lethal protector used his free arm to land a strong punch on the robot's head, knocking it clean off. "Holy shit, that's one hell of a punch he's packing," Present Mike said. His eyes widened and jaw dropped in amazement. It's no surprise they were able to defeat that large Namu during the Hasu incident, Snipe commented. Venom then sidestepped out of the way of a missile fired from another robot before launching a tendril which penetrated through the automaton's body. Venom then began to spin around along with the tendril and half-destroyed robot, using both as a flail which knocked away several approaching robots which were sent flying into the various pipes and buildings around them before they exploded on impact. Venom then stopped before raising the tendril and robot into the air and slammed it down like a hammer, letting go just in time to retract and prevent being hurt by the explosion that took out many more robots with it. They do cause quite a bit of collateral damage to the surrounding area, Ectoplasm said, though I suppose that is to be expected considering the world they come from. Keep in mind that they won't be fighting villains in the cities anytime soon, Cementos reminded his colleague. Venom saw more robots slowly approaching and bent his arms up before he attempted to concentrate. The matter and veins around his arms warped and distorted as he appeared to be trying to manifest weapons from his biomass. At first, it appeared that his arms started to turn into crude blades, but they dissipated and went back to being Venom's hands and forearms. Venom gritted his teeth in frustration before dodging an incoming attack from one of the robots before grabbing and tearing one of their appendages off, then proceeded to use it like a baton as he smacked it into the side of the nearest robot before leaping away from another missile that was shot from behind. Venom rushed into a few robots while flailing the arm he stole around like a club, striking with enough to do decent damage and even caving in some of the armor that was grafted to them. Venom afterwards turned around and proceeded to hit the downed robot from before with a Grand Slam-styled swing that knocked them several feet away, and head first through a large pipe, then took the robot arm and threw it like a javelin into the torso of the robot he stole it from, hitting its main battery which caused it to explode. They have so much strength and skill. The two already dealt with a few waves of those large robots so easily, All Might exclaimed in surprise and shock. And yet Endeavor was able to take him in without much effort. How the hell did he not put up more of a fight? Present Mike wondered. Because Venom is vulnerable to sound and fire, a male voice replied, catching everyone's attention. It was Principal Nezu, who had a cup of tea and was also looking at the Jumbotron. Principal Nezu, All Might along with the other staff greeted, before All Might spoke up again. What are you doing here? Watching Mr. Brock and Venom during their exercise, Nezu replied. It's a good way of determining his current level of strength and limitations. So far, they are displaying quite an impressive combination of power and technique, which I would put it around the level of a pro. Discipline and experience seem to be a possible drawback given that he does still fight with a more savage and animalistic style, and has clearly not been doing this for decades like we have, Cementos explained. Yes, Mr. Brock was not a hero or someone trained in combat back in his universe, but Venom is a different matter, especially in terms of experience and skill given that Mr. Brock is most likely not his first host. Nezu deduced. What do you think, All Might? That seems to be a fair assessment. All Might replied in agreement. But how do you know they're weak to fire and sound? Present Mike asked. Endeavor informed the authorities and pros that were in Hasu. Nezu replied. As for sound, Mr. Brock told us that given how many sound-based quirks there are in UA, guess that at least means we have plenty of ways to deal with him if he goes AWOL. Present Mike remarked. I highly doubt that they'll do anything of the sort though. All Might stated. Venom weaved around a couple of attacks from the robots before he struck one of them with a wide claw swipe that left 4 cuts across its torso and arm before the lethal protector landed a drop kick on the same robot, launching them into the automatons behind it. He then formed a large black shield on one of his arms and used it to parry 2 missiles that were shot at him, deflecting them into a nearby structure before charging at a group of robots and shield bashed them with enough force to knock them over. Venom retracted the shield before leaping up into the air, reaching a high enough altitude that allowed him to curl up and somersaulted towards the ground with great force as he uncurled his body and slammed into the ground with his fists, creating a shockwave strong enough to leave a decent-sized crater and knocked several robots into each other. Venom stood back up as he let out a powerful roar that could be heard all the way across campus. Are you not entertained? Venom shouted. Give me a real challenge. Damn, none of these robots were no match for them, Snipe said as one of the cameras displayed Venom's destruction. It appears so, Nezu said with a nod. Perhaps it's time he faced something that will challenge him and show us just how strong the host and symbiote are together. We were using the villain bot troopers before. Guess we should try one of the bots used in the entrance exam. Present Mike suggested. To give Venom the challenge he wants, I say that we should send in a 0-pointer to go and fight him. All Might replied. Do you think that's fine, Principal Nezu? That should be fine. The Executor series were great obstacles for the students at the sports festival. Nezu replied. Let's see what Venom is truly capable of. All Might stated as he pressed a button on a small remote. There was a sudden rumble at Field Gamma, which caught Venom's attention as he looked around trying to find the source of the tremor. Soon enough, he saw the source of where the tremor was coming from in the form of a giant robot. It was green and had what looked like a humanoid upper body with arms and a rectangular head with multiple red eyes, while its lower body appeared to have tank treads. Oh shit, Eddie said within Venom. Looks like they've sent in the cavalry, Venom commented before opening his mouth and flashing his tongue. The Executor destroyed the pipes and structures that were in the way as it moved towards Venom. It then raised its right arm with an open hand and brought it down with a surprising amount of speed, attempting to flatten the symbiote. Venom rolled out of the way of the attack before creating a few tendrils to pull on a few nearby pipes, then releasing to be propelled in the air, and tried landing a flying kick on the Executor. The giant robot barely staggered back from the force of Venom's kick, but continued to move forward by running over the pipes that were in its way, and this time tried to punch at Venom after forming a fist with its left hand only for the lethal protector to leap away from the incoming attack. Small turrets also came out of its shoulders and some parts of its chest and fired at the symbiote, to which Venom swiftly moved out of the way of each shot before attempting to ensnare one of the Executor's arms with tendrils. A small part of its arm was trapped in Venom's tendrils, but as it tried to punch Venom once again, it had a harder time to reel its own arm back. The Executor then used some of its turrets to try and shoot the tendrils off and reached down at Venom with its other arm to grab Venom, to which he let go of the robot's arm to dodge each of the shots fired. Any bright ideas, Eddie? Venom asked his host. It's a big robot with cannons and huge arms, Eddie replied. Maybe we can use the robot's weight and power against it. Oh, good thinking, Venom exclaimed as he carefully examined the Executor's design and body before avoiding yet another punch from the robot. The Executor was leaning down in the direction his hand went to try and grab Venom. It used its other hand to stand back up straight. It then spotted Venom again and continued to fire its turrets at him and brought back its hand to swipe at the symbiote. However, Venom weaved out of the reach of the Executor before he raced up one of its arms, then lunged at the side of the robot's head with a dive kick, wrapping a tendril around his leg and spinning it rapidly to create a drill-like effect as it was plunged into the side of the Executor's head. Wicked. That's some epic dive kick, Present Mike exclaimed. Impressive, All Might said, surprised at Venom's skill. Seems like there's more to Venom than we thought. Indeed, Samantha simply said in agreement, also impressed with Venom. He's taken his current arsenal and applied a different application to it, Nezu explained. Quite clever of them. The force generated by Venom's drill kick was enough to knock the Executor on its side, removing the treads off the ground and looking like a flipped-over tank. Venom landed on top of the downed Executor before snarling at its opponent. I thought you couldn't make weapons yet, Eddie remarked. I can still use my tendrils in creative ways, Eddie, Venom roared before he felt the Executor shaking. It then began to push itself off of the ground to stand back up and continue the fight. The turrets that were still operational began to turn and open fire on Venom, while using its other hand to try and grab him. Venom leaped away from the arm before forming a shield to block each of the rounds fired at him, though the force of each shot was strong enough to push him back a few centimeters. Venom then used the gap between shots to quickly dash towards the Executor before dodging more shots from the robot's turrets. As soon as the robot was able to stand back up on its treads, it opened up its chest to reveal a large barrel extending a few feet out of it, and the inside started to glow with bright red energy. "Wait, what is that?" Eddie asked, as Venom's eyes widened in surprise and horror. The Executor then fired out a large and red laser beam out of its chest, traveling a dozen feet in front of itself before making its way towards Venom. Venom then did his best to try and dodge the laser, to which, though it didn't land a direct hit, was able to blast the side of his torso, making the symbiote screech in anguish from the burning sensation of the energy-directed weapon. That hurt," Venom screamed as he held his wounded side in anger. "I felt that one too, shit. Guess it's not just fire, but any heat-based weapon or attacks," Eddie said, gritting his teeth within Venom. "I thought he was only weak to fire and sound," Snipe said, "but I guess any intense heat will weaken Venom. Could it be thermal energy or maybe ions that specifically weaken him?" Nezu speculated. Regardless, the Executor series lasers do indeed have an effect. Venom began to heal slowly after evading another blast of the Executor's laser, to which the wound closed up as he spawned tendrils to zip line and swing across the training field as he kept his distance from the robot. Despite the damage it sustained, the Executor was still chasing Venom at the same pace while firing its remaining turrets to eliminate Venom. After a few seconds, the robot was charging up its laser cannon once again. Venom landed on one of the rooftops before he tore out a few pipes from nearby, and bent and twisted them into the shape of a spear or harpoon with his raw strength. Afterwards, he lifted the makeshift projectile and carefully started to aim it at the Executor, waiting for the right moment to fire. The laser cannon was fully charged, and the robot fired it, but this time it was directly targeted at Venom, to which the lethal protector then threw the makeshift spear at the laser, which traveled through it at impressive speeds, making the energy attack split into several smaller beams before the spear plunged into the Executor's cannon and destroyed it. The Executor staggered backwards, and there were a few small explosions as a result of the cannon's destruction, with some explosions destroying the turrets as the robot was now moving more slowly towards Venom. To try and eliminate its target despite its limited functions, it once again formed a fist and punched towards the symbiote. However, to the surprise of the staff watching, Venom caught the punch with one of his hands before smirking at the damaged Executor. "He caught its punch," Present Mike said, looking as if his eyes were going to burst through his glasses. "No way," Snipe exclaimed in shock, while All Might was rather speechless at Venom's strength. "Not so strong now, are you?" Venom taunted before he pulled the Executor's arm forward and leaped onto it, then ran up the robot as he stretched out his arms and formed tendrils on each of them. The robot then tried to grab Venom once more by using its other hand while shooting at him with only one shoulder turret. Venom, however, swiftly avoided each of the shots before he leaped in front of the Executor's head and swung his tendrils inwards, with the force of the tendrils smashing into the side of the robot's head, destroying it once and for all. The Executor was tipped over onto its side, crashing into the ground with a large crater being formed and surrounding pipes and other structures also being destroyed, to which Venom simply snarled at the downed robot before he proceeded to head back to the Jumbotron by zip-lining and climbing across various pipes and rooftops. Soon enough, the lethal protector arrived back at the Jumbotron, landing near All Might before roaring and thrusting up his arms in victory. "That was epic," Present Mike shouted with excitement. Well, you certainly have exceeded our expectations, Venom, especially after taking down a villain bot Executor," Nezu praised before finishing his cup of tea. "What can I say? I'm a natural-born warrior," Venom exclaimed before he retracted back into Eddie. "It's my body you're using, don't forget that." Eddie scolded the symbiote. "You both must have a strong bond to be this powerful," All Might remarked. "Yeah, well, symbiosis and all, everyone else I've seen that had a symbiote never did though," Eddie said before having a drink of water. "It's a shame that someone of your strength isn't a hero or from this world for that matter." Cementos lamented. "Not a hero, we are the lethal protector," Venom exclaimed angrily. "Yeah, probably best not to wish for that," Eddie said, scratching his head. "Fighting robots has worn us out, so that should be it for training today. Indeed, we'll need to make repairs to Field Gamma before 1O or 1B can use them again after all," Nezu said with a nod. "If there is one flaw with the way you fight, it's that you are quite destructive in battle and have less concern over your surroundings, something that heroes should always be mindful of." "Then why have me fight a bunch of robots?" Venom yelled, sprouting out of Eddie angrily. "Maybe you should be more specific with what I can and cannot do." "Yeah, I have to agree with him on that one," Eddie said, crossing his arms. Not telling us there were conditions to this exercise doesn't exactly help us become less destructive. But where's the fun in that, Mr. Brock? Nezu retorted smugly. Eddie looked at Nezu in disbelief before looking at the other staff members with an expression that read, "Is this guy for real?" Some of the staff only gave Eddie a shrug before All Might spoke up. There's always room for improvement. You just have to be mindful of your environment when in a fight, especially if there are civilians and other people around you. All Might said before remembering something. If I'm not mistaken, you're going to the summer camp with our first years, right? I'm allowed to do that? Eddie asked in a surprised tone. Yeah, I'm with Brock on this one. Letting him go to places in Tokyo is one thing, but going to the summer camp. The camp that was almost cancelled due to the league attacking and was only allowed to proceed because we organized for it to take place in a secure location that only a select few were allowed knowledge of. Present Mike asked, both with a mix of caution and suspicion. Well, when you put it like that, it does sound a bit weird, especially if something were to go wrong or if I was forced to transform. Eddie said, scratching his head. Aizawa and Vlad King are both prepared should a situation happen, and the hosts for the summer camp are all pro heroes themselves, so I believe that you shouldn't have anything to worry about and shouldn't have to expect the League of Villains attacking given the location of the camp being a well-guarded secret. Nezu explained. Right, but the commission, Eddie said before Nezu held up his paw to interrupt him. Let me worry about the commission, you just focus on learning what you can from the students' training. Nezu said. But of course, if anyone does have objections to Mr. Brock going to the camp, then I am more than willing to listen. I think it would be fine for Mr. Brock to attend the summer camp. Ectoplasm said, with Snipe and Cementos nodding in agreement. But they should still be kept under someone's watch, of course. Snipe added. That can be arranged, Nezu said with a nod. Now then, I believe you all have classes to attend soon. Of course, All Might said before he and the other staff headed back to the main building. Night had fallen in Kamino as the day had finally come to an end. Returning to a familiar hideout, inside were Shigaraki and Kurogiri, the former stacking playing cards and the latter watching him do so. The master is good. I tried so hard to find out where those idiots were going and he found out in an instant. Guess he really showed me, huh? Shigaraki asked as he finished his house of cards. It was worth having a team on standby then, wasn't it? Tamura Shigaraki. Kurogiri asked. HMPH, I guess. Shigaraki replied as his house of cards fell over. The sound of a bell went off and the door opening could be heard as Kurogiri turned towards it. A puff of smoke was seen before a familiar broker began talking to the two villains. I heard back from the union today. You can expect a delivery tomorrow, Jiren said before slowly entering the bar. It was thrown together quickly, so it might not look like much, but quality is guaranteed. I must apologize for making such an unreasonable request, Kurogiri stated. Tell me, Shigaraki, do you know why the union accepted this outlandish order of yours? Jiren asked as he took a puff of his cigarette. Cause everyone has high expectations of you. If the League of Villains steps into the light, then the scum hiding under the sidelines will follow suit. Jiren grinned before outstretching his arm with his cigarette in hand. And if that happens, it means brokers like me will be rolling in hungry new customers. Crime pays. Oh yes, you're going to be so busy, you won't be able to keep up, Shigaraki remarked. Jiren chuckled before taking a puff of his cigarette again. I'm looking forward to that. Anyway, thanks, he said before leaving the hideout and closing the door. The board is set with my pawns and their prey, Shigaraki said as a menacing smile formed on his face. Finally, time for the real game to begin. And what of the vigilante, Shigaraki? How do you intend to deal with him? Kurogiri asked curiously. Right now, he's been laying low and out of sight ever since Endeavor arrested him. So unless he sprouts up again, I need to focus on those brats first, Shigaraki explained before scratching his neck. But not to worry, I have a backup plan in case that Namu-eating bastard shows his ugly face. If you say so, Tamura Shigaraki, Kurogiri said with a nod. The sound of screams could suddenly be heard in the distance, which caught the two villains' attention. Sounds like it's coming from the alleyway, Shigaraki said as he got out of his seat and headed towards the door to have a look, with Kurogiri shortly walking behind him. Some common thug appeared to have been thrown against the alleyway wall as a feminine humming started to fill the air, as a familiar psychotic schoolgirl approached the thug, who looked scared out of his mind. And no, stay back, I warn you, the thug yelled as he pulled out a gun as Toga kept walking as red and black matter enveloped her body. The thug opened fire on Toga, but she dodged a few gunshots swiftly with symbiote-enhanced reflexes before forming a tendril that smacked the gun out of the thug's hand. Toga giggled as a jaw of black razor-sharp teeth formed on her face before grabbing the thug by the neck with a red and black clawed hand. This one looks plump enough, time to dig in. Carnage exclaimed with glee as she used a tendril to pierce the thug's neck, causing him to scream louder. That girl again, the one with the same power as that vigilante, Shigaraki said, watching curiously. Carnage used the tendril to suck up blood from the thug's neck before lowering it over Toga's mouth, and tipped it down, drinking the blood in a ritualistic fashion. So delicious, Toga said excitedly. Your blood is sweet and potent. Can I have his brain now, sis? Carnage asked as her grin got wider. Now, let's not rush this. I'm having too much fun drinking him dry, Toga replied before forming a red blade from her arm that she put against the thug's chest. That's enough, Himiko Toga, Kurogiri firmly stated. Otherwise the authorities and pro-heroes will find our hideout. Who asked you, you black and purple windbag? Carnage yelled before being shushed by Toga. Carnage, eat him, Toga said with delight, to which Carnage, using Toga's body, bit down on the thug's head, spraying brain matter and skull fragments as she devoured the brain whole. A little chewy for my taste, but I'm always glad to take a bite of people. Sweet, sweet brains, Carnage hummed amusingly before fully retracting back into Toga. Looks like you've learned to control that parasite you've got in you, Shigaraki said, raising a brow. But Kurogiri is right. Our hideout will be discovered if you don't quiet down. HMPH, I think I see why Dad didn't like being called parasite, Carnage remarked in annoyance. You sure we can't eat him? If we keep Shigaraki alive, he'll lead us to so many more lovely brains and people to feast on, and maybe even meet someone special to our heart, Toga replied audibly as she giggled. Yeah, a heart will rip from their chest and bite into like a juicy apple, Carnage retorted. Who the hell are you talking to? Shigaraki asked in an irritated tone. Nobody special, just my new gooey and fleshy friend here, Toga replied as she waved her hand while it transformed into a red hand with clawed fingertips and black pulsating veins. Are you saying that the biological matter you possess is sentient? Himiko Toga, Kurogiri asked. Yep, it's alive, Toga replied with a grin. Well, she's alive and dangerous. Yeah, obviously, and here I thought it was just a skin virus, Shigaraki said sarcastically. You sure we can't just kill him? We can find our own prey, Carnage suggested. I'm the one who makes the decisions, remember. My body, my rules, Toga said sternly as her hand turned back to normal. Himiko Toga, our delivery is expected to arrive soon. Can you please wait for it to arrive and deliver it to the other members? Kurogiri asked. Oh sure, I can do that, easy peasy, Toga replied, twirling one of her knives. Good, you have my thanks, Kurogiri said. Do we have to wait for this stupid delivery? Carnage asked, sounding like a whiny child. You'll get to have fun soon, just you wait, Toga assured the psychotic symbiote. Kurogiri, you sure it's wise to trust this girl with the delivery? Shigaraki asked. She's unhinged, especially with that living sludge inside her body. I do believe that she can get the job done, Tamura Shigaraki, Kurogiri replied. Well, let's hope you're right, Kurogiri, Shigaraki said as he scratched his neck again. After all that effort finding members for the squad, we'd better not see any missing brains when it's time to strike. Miss Toga can find her own food once she's far from our hideout, Kurogiri said assuringly. She better, or we're going to need to find a new member of the Vanguard Action Squad, Shigaraki remarked before gazing at Toga with a curious look. Eddie heard his alarm go off in his bed, causing him to react with annoyed groans as he slowly reached for his phone in order to turn off the alarm feature. Seeing the time, he quickly got up, had a shower, and then ate some breakfast while venom protruded out of his body and started to munch down on a mix of chicken and nuts to maintain his body chemistry. Soon, Eddie got dressed as he headed for the outside of the UA building where the students of Class 1A and 1B were waiting. Made it on time, Eddie said, thrusting his arm up in the air while out of breath. Eddie, we are almost 20 minutes late, Venom said bluntly. I got us here, didn't I? All of the kids are still waiting, so I don't see the problem, Eddie said nonchalantly. Because punctuality is good manners, Mr. Brock, Ida said, addressing the symbiote host. We've all put our luggage on the buses and are now waiting for our teachers to return. He's got you beat, Eddie, Venom teased with a chuckle. Morning, kids, Eddie said, waving with a defeated expression. Morning, Mr. Brock, Eddie, the rest of the students greeted. Morning, Venom. All right, summer camp. Boy, I think I remember going to summer camp once back in the day. Played sports, swam, learned how to shoot a bow, an arrow, then at night you're sitting around a campfire, making s'mores and telling ghost stories, Eddie said, rubbing his palms together. Eddie, we're going to Camp Crystal Lake here. This is super summer camp, Venom exclaimed as he sprouted out of Eddie's shoulder. I suggest the two of you shut up so I may address my class, Aizawa said as he walked in front of Class 1A. Now that you've finished up your first semester at UA, Hi, it's time for summer vacation to officially begin. Aizawa then cast his glare on his students. However, don't think these will be months of rest for you heroes in the making. At this camp, we'll push you to go beyond your limits. You're aiming to become plus ultra. Yes, sir, his students all exclaimed. I'm so psyched. Uraraka cheered as she ran up to Midoriya. I've been looking forward to this camp all semester, Deku. Oh yeah, it's definitely close, huh? Midoriya exclaimed as his face turned red and frantically moved his arms around. So close. Hey, what's the matter? Uraraka asked as she tilted to one side. I'm just a little hot, Midoriya replied, taking a step back from her. Eddie facepalmed himself upon hearing Midoriya's comeback. Real smooth, kid, real smooth. Uraraka was puzzled as to why Deku was flustered. But then the image and voice of Aoyama came up in her mind again. Is it because you like him? These words caused Uraraka's skin to turn red as she scrunched up her features and started to sweat profusely. She quickly sidestepped several feet away from Midoriya as she quickly changed the subject. Let's hear it for camp, she exclaimed, with Kaminari, Ashido, and a few of the other students also chanting the word camp while dancing and clapping. Wow, Uraraka and the others sure are excited, Midoriya thought. Venom began to burst out laughing at not only Midoriya's flustered reaction, but at Uraraka's attempts at trying to hide her embarrassment. Eddie shot a glare at Venom, who just squinted his eyes in amusement. You know how invested I am in this love plot, Venom said with a smile. Just keep it down to a minimum. Eddie scolded. I heard some of class is taking extra courses. Does that mean they actually failed the final exams? Yelled the voice of Class 1B's insecure and envious mimic Monoma before letting out a gasp. That must be so embarrassing. Especially since you're supposed to be so much better than my class. All of you must be wallowing in shame. After this rant, Kendo, who was the class representative, then landed a quick chop on the back of Monoma's head which knocked him to his knees and planted his face on the pavement. Don't mind him, Kendo said casually as she grabbed Monoma's collar and dragged him off out of sight. Oh good, she's going to bury the body, Venom said, getting a few looks from Eddie and some of the other students. What? He's annoying and jealous of what was basically a domestic terrorist attack on your class, which we don't need you to remind us of, pal, Eddie said with a groan. Monoma's scary, the quiet but ghost-like Yanagi muttered. Oh, the rest of Class B, Midoriya said, noticing the students from Class 1B. It's nice to see you outside of the sports festival, the confident and chatty Takage said. I guess now we're not technically rivals. Another girl from 1B, the near-silent Kodai, simply nodded in agreement. Time to get on the bus, Kendo called to her class as she dragged Monoma onto the bus. Okay, most of the students exclaimed as they hurried to the bus excitedly. However, a certain half-pint pervert was gazing at the female students from a distance in delight. The girls of Class A and Class B, Minta said as he was covering his mouth with his forearm, being nearly covered in drool. It's like a buffet of bombshells. Dude, get yourself together, for real, Kirishima said with a concerned look. Attention Class A, our bus is here. Everyone line up in seating order, Ida called out to his class, acting as best as he could being the class representative. Soon enough everyone was on the bus and headed towards their summer camp. Eddie elected to go in the bus with Class 1A, both because he had been on a field trip with 1B the other day and also because he just felt more comfortable with them. Not that he wanted people to think he was playing favorites. The principal is playing with thin ice letting you tag along on this summer camp, Aizawa said bluntly. We've had close calls before in regards to Venom transforming in front of the students, but I doubt it will be easier here in such an isolated area. I thought the same thing, but the guy said it was okay, so here I am, Eddie said with a shrug. I'm sure the pros who are hosting the camp will have that covered too, given that they had to be informed of my presence before we headed out. Eddie, feed me, Venom barked as he sprouted out of his shoulder. Eddie just sighed before he held a piece of chocolate to Venom's face, who snatched it up like a wild animal feasting on fresh prey. Aizawa rolled his eyes before he decided to then address his students on the bus. Here's the deal, we'll be on this bus for about an hour before our first stop. Make sure to stay focused. Why aren't we blasting some music? Kaminari called out. No one should be standing, that's a safety hazard, Ida exclaimed angrily at Aoyama and Shiro. The inside of the bus became a wave of sound and chatter as the students mingled and spoke to one another without a care in the world. Suffice to say, Aizawa was both annoyed and dumbfounded by their complete disregard of his words. Why do I bother? He sighed. Though I guess this is the only time they'll have to fool around. Guess you've got a lot of training planned for them, huh? Eddie asked. If they can make it through the camp, then they'll be well on their way to getting their provisional licenses soon, something that we'd normally only do in their second year, Aizawa replied. But these kids have gone through some hardships and experiences that most first years haven't, and they're rapidly growing because of it. Almost sounds like natural selection, Eddie remarked. Guess they really are stronger than 1B. Don't get the wrong idea. While it's true my students facing villains in real-life situations has prepared them and allowed them to learn how to be heroes at an accelerated rate, they are however lacking the more academic and professional side of their education, something that 1B has been able to do because of not being targeted by the League, and in turn means they're ahead of us in terms of studies. Aizawa explained. That and Vlad is honestly the better teacher out of the two of us. So book smarts versus street smarts, Eddie said before giving Venom another piece of chocolate. And you're sure they're ready to have licenses? Only time will tell. Maybe if they do good enough at camp, but there's no telling how ready they'll be once it's all over. Aizawa replied. Maybe it'll happen again, another attack, Venom suggested, to which Aizawa let out a sigh. The camp's location was only given to us yesterday, and only shared between us teachers and the principal. Aizawa explained. The possibility of another villain attack is very unlikely, and yet your students have become like a moth to a flame for villains from what I can tell. Venom commented. Then by all means, why don't you teach the class then? Aizawa retorted. Can't. I'm the alien blob trapped inside this idiot's body, Venom said before retracting back into Eddie. We've done all we currently can to protect these children, to ensure they can go home without them and their parents fearing for their lives. The school can't keep having a target placed on it, because not only will it affect those kids, it will also affect the future of heroes, Aizawa said before applying some eye drops. Brock, I know you're just here to stay out of prison and to find a way to get home, but I want you to promise me something. And what's that? Eddie asked. If something does happen on this camp, if there is an attack like Venom suspects, you'll do what you can to protect these kids, Aizawa replied, surprising Eddie. I know you don't have a license and that you risk exposing yourself, but I am only asking this of you because as far as the world knows, you were never at this camp. Aizawa, I don't. Brock, Aizawa said sternly. Eddie sighed before he scratched his head and looked at the students in the back, having such a good time. He envied their youth and naturally born powers, but he admired them for wanting to become heroes. He wanted them to be able to be kids, to not grow up so fast, despite facing multiple villains already. He looked in front of him before turning to face Aizawa. All right, I promise. Aizawa simply nodded at the San Franciscan as the bus kept driving towards their destination. About an hour of driving, the bus pulled into what appeared to be a lookout point on the side of the road, which had a simple wood fence, and the only other vehicle there was a black car that could have been a BMW and Rolls-Royce hybrid. The students of WANA all got out with Aizawa and Eddie as they stretched and moved their aching bodies. Finally, I needed off that bus, Kaminari remarked. Let me get through, I've gotta pee, Minta shouted as he raced around the area to find a restroom. There's no bathroom here, it's just a lookout, Eddie said, observing his surroundings. And what's with the black car? Government agents, men in black. Have they come to take us to Area 51? Venom exclaimed as he bursted out of Eddie's back. It belongs to the pro heroes who will be acting as our hosts for the summer, Aizawa replied quietly so that only Eddie and Venom could hear. The students are going to have to get to camp on foot from here. Seriously, just what have you got planned for these kids? Eddie asked with a confused look. You'll see soon enough, Brock, Aizawa said as he could see Minta racing towards him. Huh, this isn't much of a rest area, Kirishima commented. No, and where's Class B? Gyro asked. You don't really think we stopped here just so you could stretch your legs, do you? Aizawa asked, catching the attention of the class. The rest of the students then turned to Aizawa in confusion, while Minta looked like he was having a hard time holding it in. Please sir, the toilet, Minta begged. Suddenly, the two front doors of the black car then opened, and a female voice could be heard, which grabbed all of the students' attention. Hiya, Eraser. Long time, no see, Aizawa said as he bowed down slightly. Two women stepped out of the car. Both of them were wearing what appeared to be cat-themed costume, consisting of sleeveless, collared tops decorated with 3 straps and a bell, a large ruffled skirt, a tail, an orange belt with pockets, a silver buckle resembling a cat paw with blue pads, large white cat gloves with retractable claws, boots with vertical stripes lined with white fur, and communication devices designed to resemble cat ears. Do what? Eddie said confused as subtly pointed at the two women. They're dressed like. They're catgirls, Eddie, one of Japan's biggest fetishes. Now they're just daring us to go wild, Venom exclaimed from within. Your feline fantasies are here. Say meow. The woman in the red cat costume, Mandalay, said cheerfully. Perfectly cute and cat-like girls. The woman in the blue cat costume, Pixie Bob, continued. You can call us the wild Pussycats, the both of them said before striking their signature pose. Suffice to say, Class 1 was speechless by the two cat-themed women, while Eddie sighed as he could hear Venom trying his best not to laugh at the whole situation from within. These are the pro heroes you'll be working with at the summer training camp, Aizawa stated. They're a 4-person hero team that specialize in mountain rescues, Midoriya exclaimed excitedly. The Pussycats were founded when we were kids, like forever ago. This marks their 12th year working as a MPH. Midoriya was interrupted as Pixie Bob grabbed his face. I'm pretty sure your math must be off, Pixie Bob exclaimed with tranquil fury. I'm 18 at heart. So her heart is 18, but the rest of her is older, Venom commented with a laugh. Understood, Midoriya said. That's so sad, Kaminari and Kirishima thought. Everyone, say hello, Aizawa told his class. Hello, it's nice to meet you, all of Class 1 said. While they greeted Mandalay and Pixie Bob, Eddie noticed that with the two pro heroes was a young boy with black messy hair wearing a red cap with yellow horns, a white undershirt and dark gray shorts with black boots with white soles. His eyes were dilated and he had a gaze that screamed a mix of contempt, anger and annoyance with the whole situation. That kid, is he related to the Pussycats? Eddie wondered. Whoever he is, he emanates a lot of anger and resentment, Venom said, also curious about this boy. You can tell, Eddie asked. Those are the eyes of a miserable brat, Eddie, almost like how you were when we first met. Venom replied. We own this whole stretch of land out here, everything you can see, Mandalay said, then pointed ahead. The summer camp you're staying at is there, the base of the mountain. That's far, all of the students remarked. Yes, quite far, like national park levels of far, Eddie remarked before looking at Aizawa. You're making them walk all of that. Like I said, you'll see, Aizawa replied. Then why did we stop all the way up here instead? Uraraka asked. I'm afraid we both know the answer to that, Asui replied as she placed a finger under her lip. That can't be right, Sato said as he smiled nervously. Back on the bus, quick, let's go, Zero said as he turned to try and head back. Good idea. Load up, Kaminari said, to which the others agreed. The current time is 9:30 in the morning. If you're fast about it, you might make it there by noon, Mandalay said with a wicked grin. No way, guys, Kirishima said, as fear enveloped his face. Holy crap, Ashido exclaimed as she tried to run. Save yourself, Kirishima called out as he and the other students scrambled around to try and escape what came next. Kiddies who don't make it there by 12:30 won't get any lunch, Mandalay called out in a tone that really didn't sit well with Eddie and Venom. You should have guessed, students, Aizawa said as he watched the students make their futile escape. The training camp has already begun. When the students tried to race to the bus, Pixie Bob landed in front of them and placed her paw-clad hands on the ground, which created a blue ray of light where her hands were before the ground below her started to twist and contort, ensnaring the students and pushing them off the cliffside with a large wave of sand and dirt. Shit, it's like a tsunami, Eddie thought in shock as Venom anchored him to the ground by transforming his feet. Not to worry, Eddie. My feet will keep us grounded, Venom assured. What the heck? Uraraka yelled in confusion and horror. She must be controlling the ground, Midoriya responded as he plummeted down with the rest of Class 1A. After they were all down the cliffside, the wave of earth disappeared and Mandalay approached the fence and looked down at the student. Venom fully retracted back into Eddie as they could finally move again, though the formal journalist was not exactly impressed by what Aizawa and the wild Pussycats had just done. Good news, Mandalay called out as she leaned over the railing. Since this is private land, you can use your quirks as much as you want to. You've got 3 full hours. You should be able to make it to the facility in that time. That is if you can get through the Beast Forest. The Beast Forest, Midoriya said in shock. That sounds like a name right out of a fantasy game, Kaminari remarked. Why do we keep falling for Aizawa's little tricks? Gyro asked. I guess there's no use complaining, Kirishima stated. Might as well get going. Mineta then dashed towards the forest while still holding his crotch in pain. I held it, didn't spring a single leak. Now to find a secluded spot, Mineta thought as he raced into the Beast Forest, not realizing that something was approaching. Mineta stopped in his tracks as he and the other students saw what appeared to be a large quadrupedal monster with tusks that looked to be made from logs. Zero and Kaminari screamed upon looking at the large beast. We're all gonna die. The two screamed as their fellow students either looked on in fear or got ready to fight, minus Mineta who stood there in awe. Please calm yourself, my giant friend. You don't want to hurt them, Kota shouted as he ran up towards the beast. Midoriya activated full cowling and lunged towards Mineta while the large beast attempted to swipe at the diminutive student. Fortunately, Midoriya was able to grab Minto and dodge the beast's attack before looking at the behemoth. Koda's power lets him control animals, Midoriya thought. But is this one immune? Midoriya looked carefully at the beast and saw part of its face started to fall off like cheap clay. A dirt clod. I get it, it's Pixie Bob's quirk, Midoriya thought as several students raced towards the beast made of dirt and wood. Back up top where the bus was, Pixie Bob was humming while observing the beast forest through her visor while Aizawa and Mandalay were about to exchange words before Eddie walked over to the two with a look of anger and concern. What the fuck were you thinking? Eddie yelled at the class when a teacher and wild Pussycat member, throwing them off the cliffside like that. No warning and no concern for their safety. They're training to become pro heroes, Brock, which means that they need to be put in these situations in order to get stronger and be able to handle real-life scenarios. Aizawa retorted. They're still kids, Aizawa, minors at that, and yet you tossed them off like they were lemmings in a nature documentary. Eddie angrily argued. This isn't teaching, this is child endangerment. You forget that most of the population possess a quirk, and that to maintain stability and ensure those with quirks and those without quirks still had rights, that new systems and guidelines were put in place. Aizawa said, we have to make sure that they can protect themselves and others, or else we'll end up in a future where the villains have decimated all of society because our pros were too weak or unskilled to do anything. You're grooming them to fight a war that probably doesn't even have an ending. Eddie objected before taking a deep breath. You're lucky none of them were hurt or broke anything while plummeting down to the forests. Are you threatening me, Brock? Aizawa asked with a stern gaze. Are you threatening me, Aizawa? Eddie asked, firing back at Aizawa. Mandalay had stood there listening to the two argue, which was awkward for the pro hero to watch at the very least. She cleared her throat before deciding to change the subject. So, you must be Eddie Brock. The principal told us you would be accompanying Class 1A and 1B on their camp. It's nice to finally meet you, I'm Mandalay, she said, extending a hand out to him. Oh yeah, well, the pleasure is mine, Eddie said, as he awkwardly shook her hand. I didn't mean any offense to your methods. Don't worry about it. I often feel like sometimes we take the training a bit too seriously at times, but I assure you we wouldn't have done that if we didn't think they were strong enough to handle it. Mandalay explained. You have our word that these kids will be safe. All right, thank you, Eddie said with a nod. But I will say, don't you think you've got them on a pretty crazy schedule, Eraser? Mandalay asked her fellow hero. Yeah, we're hoping to get an entire second semester's worth of knowledge in them here, Aizawa replied. Doing that is going to take an intense amount of work, but the rewards will be worth it. They'll get permits to use their quirks if there's ever an emergency, and provisional licenses that will allow them to work as heroes. Most importantly, with all the villainous activity we've been tracking, they need to be able to defend themselves. A few moments later, they saw a large geyser of smoke erupt from the beast forest, catching their attention. I trust that I can count on you, Pixie Bob, Aizawa said. Oh, leave it to me, Pixie Bob said excitedly as she stretched her arms up before pulling them down again. Oh wow, my fur is standing on end. Oh shit, looks like they already destroyed something, Venom exclaimed as he protruded out of Eddie, which didn't go unnoticed by Mandalay and the boy they had with them. Yuwa, what the hell is that thing? Some sort of parasite, Pixie Bob yelled, surprised and disgusted by the alien symbiote. Parasite, come over here and say that shit to my face, you 18 at heart bitch, Venom roared. You better watch that mouth of yours if you know what's for you, you overgrown tapeworm, Pixie Bob yelled angrily, popping her claws out of her gloves. I'll show you overgrown, Venom screamed before Eddie grabbed him by the neck, reeling him back in while putting his hand in between the symbiote and Pixie Bob. Hey, enough. Stop it, alright. You're both adults, for God's sake. Act like it, Eddie exclaimed before letting out a groan. So this is the thing we read about, the alien inside of Brock, Mandalay asked. Yes, as you can see it's fully sentient and has quite the personality, Aizawa replied. We have Venom on a specific diet of food high in phenethylamine, so we won't need to worry about him trying to eat someone's brain. Well, I'll take your word for it, and fortunately we have plenty of food with those requirements in mind, Mandalay assured. Hey, Mandalay, what's with the kid? Is he your son? Eddie asked, pointing at the boy next to Pixie Bob. Oh no, that's my second cousin, his name is Koda, Mandalay replied. Hey Koda, come say hello to our guest. The boy, named Koda, turned towards Mandalay and Eddie before slowly walking towards them. Eddie looked carefully at Koda, noticing the way he moved was slightly awkward while his gaze really saw just how miserable and angry this child must be. "Hey there, kiddo, I'm Eddie," the San Franciscan said, looking at Kota while trying his best to sound friendly. "I'm going to be here with the classes while they're doing their training. Of course I won't be training. I'm just here to observe." "Yeah, whatever, freak," Kota hissed, making Mandalay and Pixie Bob look appalled. "Whoa, hey there, that's not nice to say to someone you just met," Eddie said, taken aback by his blunt words. "Tell that to someone that cares, old man," Kota said with a venomous tone as he walked away. "You may not have a quirk like everyone else, but you're just like them." "Who does this little punk think he is?" Venom said as his anger boiled. "He lost someone, didn't he?" Eddie asked Mandalay. "I've seen eyes like his before, of someone who's lost something. His parents were killed trying to stop a villain's rampage," Mandalay explained. Kota always felt as though his parents abandoned him by becoming pro-heroes. Their work prevented them from properly raising Kota, and so there were so many things we could never fully explain. I was the only family he had left, and so I took him in, and since then he's grown to loathe anything hero-related, quirks and all. So don't expect him to be open and friendly while you're here. I mean, it's not like everyone should be superhero fans. Back when I was kid they picked on you for liking that kind of stuff," Eddie said, crossing his arms. "That sounds hard to believe given most of the population has a quirk," Mandalay said with a smirk. "It's a long story," Eddie said, as he gazed off towards the beast forest, hoping that the students would make it. Toga had many ambitions and dreams. One of them was falling in love, and one of them was becoming a part of the league. However, becoming the host of Carnage was something she did not expect, but was quickly getting the hang of the things the symbiote had to offer to her. Toga had done 2 tasks this night, taking a delivery to her new comrades and catching some fresh meat, something she had succeeded in on both accounts as she was pulling both a crate and 3 unconscious people using Carnage's tendrils. "You were right, Carnage," Toga remarked with a giggle. "Delivering these gizmos while hunting for some dinner was a walk in the park," Carnage said, but then groaned. "What's wrong?" Toga asked. "You're aware of my weaknesses, right?" Carnage asked. "Fire and sound, yeah." Toga asked. "This because of that Dabai guy. I felt him ignite the hydrogen around his palms that night. If we get stuck near him, we'll be fried." Carnage warned. "Maybe it would better to sneak up on him and tear his head off. He's one of our friends now, so like it or not, he stays alive, unless he decides to double-cross us," Toga said before she reached a large warehouse in the outskirts of Tokyo, then opened its metal doors. Hey, special delivery from Tamura. He wants us to bring these along as we go, so I'm guessing there's enough for everyone." "Come on, I'm ready," a large man wearing a hooded cloak said as a grin formed on his face. "Let's hurry up and do this. It's still too early," a younger man sitting in the shadows stated. "Besides, don't forget, he said we shouldn't do anything flashy." "Yeah, he acted like a spoiled little brat when we first met," Dabai said. "But suddenly he's begun to take charge. This is gonna be nothing more than a warning shot. We'll pull down those false heroes from their shiny pedestals. And in doing so, we'll create a bright new future for this world." "Bright new future. You sound like such a revolutionary, sweetheart." "It suits you," Carnage said, who protruded out of Toga like a red and black snake and formed a head with large white eyes and large black razor-sharp teeth. "Oh, the melodrama. Big mouth coming from a talking piece of jello," Dabai fired back, glaring at Carnage. "Sure you don't want a surgeon or doctor to cut that thing out of you, Toga. I'm not some cancer, you burning corpse," Carnage shrieked, looking ready to attack. "Let's see you give your little speeches when I cut out your throat and stick it up your ass. Now you're speaking my language," the large hooded man exclaimed excitedly. "Maybe I'll pulverize you for a warm-up." "So the rumors are true then," the younger man said with interest. "You do possess a living weapon inside your body, a power separate from your quirk. She's the best friend any girl would kill to have," Toga said, wrapping her arm around Carnage affectionately before she got out her phone and took a selfie. "Toga, I'm starving. Let me eat before we get busy," Carnage said with a pout. All right, wake up those 3 idiots we caught and dig in," Toga said as Carnage used her tendrils to smack the unconscious men awake. "What the? Where are we?" one of the men said. "Oh fuck, it's a girl," another man yelled. "Help, someone help us," the last of the men shouted. "No one can hear you, sir, and no one will ever know that you are here," Toga said as she walked towards them as Carnage transformed her body. The rest of the villains in attendance watched as Carnage began to savagely feast upon the 3 men, first cutting them open and drinking their blood before then biting their heads clean off or just tearing out the brain and sticking it in their mouth like a piece of chewing gum. The sight was a bloodbath of gore and mess, as there was a mix of reactions, ranging from fear, nervousness, excitement, and concern. Whatever this thing is that latched onto Toga, I just hope it doesn't try and eat us when it's run out of food. Dabai thought as he looked at the night sky from a hole in the roof. We're going to need all of the manpower we can get to tear down this false world. Eddie had a bit of trouble trying to fall asleep last night for a multitude of reasons and issues. He was shocked by how callous Aizawa and the other pro-heroes could be around these children, and though he understood they had quirks and were stronger than a regular human, it didn't change the fact that it sometimes felt more like a military school and how harsh they were with their studies and physical education. He also was thinking about home, his universe in San Francisco, as well as Anne, who he hoped that Dan was treating well given that the last time he spoke to them the wedding would be happening very soon. Eddie was also concerned about that boy Kota, as ever since meeting him up on that road he could tell there was a darkness within him, one created by the tragedy of losing his parents and essentially disowning hero society in general. Hey Eddie, wasn't it hilarious seeing that Kota kid deck the broccoli boy in the nuts last night? Venom asked with glee. Glad to see you're treating this with the utmost seriousness, pal. Eddie said sarcastically. I just feel as though that kid could be on a bad path if someone doesn't try and help him. And I don't mean save him, I mean like professional help. So does that mean we're going to help him then? Venom asked with a groan. Maybe, but right now, Eddie said as he saw all of Class 1B in their PE uniforms looking tired or scatterbrained. Let's just watch and see how these kids train. We're focusing on our quirks, Kendo asked, one of the few members of the class not looking visibly tired or annoyed. Class is already training. You all need to catch up, Vlad King said as he motioned for them to walk with him. Last semester, Class A was in the spotlight. Next semester, it's Class B's turn. Once again, they're treating that attack on the USJ like it was just some show, even though people could have been killed, Eddie said with an annoyed expression as he walked near them. Don't they realize these are kids they're talking about? I think these kids are no better. They treat it like a game too, Eddie. Venom remarked. Especially Class 1B. From now on, you're shooting for the top. Don't let me down, Vlad said to his class. We're such disappointing students. The metal-shifting Tetsu thought as he and two other students were putting their heads in their hands and others had their heads low. I get that you want everyone to improve their quirks. We have 20 unique powers in our class. What kind of training will help all of us get better? Takage asked curiously. Yeah, can you be more specific? The insectoid Kamakiri asked their teacher. Yeah, I'm curious too as to what crazy-ass training you're going to put these kids through, Eddie said passive-aggressively, which Vlad King noticed but chose to ignore. When your muscle fibers are overused, they break and grow back tougher, thicker. Quirks are the same way, Vlad King explained. They improve the harder you push them, stronger after every workout. In other words, there's only one thing to do. Vlad King had arrived at the training site with his class and Eddie, to which they stumbled upon quite the sight. You'll have to break yourself, Vlad King exclaimed, much to the shock and horror of his students who got a glimpse of what was in store for them. As they and Eddie could see, Class 1A was already doing their training, each following a special regiment to augment and push their quirks in an effort to make them stronger and more resilient to their weaknesses. Bakugou, after letting his arms sit in a barrel of boiling hot water, screamed at the top of his lungs and shot out a large explosion into the air, while nearby Todoroki in a barrel of water while rapidly switching between using his ice and fire powers. Zero meanwhile was on a hill shooting out his tape continuously despite the physical pain was under while down below Kirishima and Ajiro were sparring, having Ajiro hit Kirishima with his tail while hardening his arm for defense, and close by Kaminari was holding onto a generator and allowing his electricity to surge through it, channeling massive amounts of voltage into his body. Kota was practicing vocal exercises and shouting to improve his Annie voice's range of effect while Aoyama meanwhile was shooting lasers from his stomach towards the sky repeatedly, all while his stomach ached more and made him feel extremely nauseous. Underneath Aoyama inside a cave was Takoyami, who was trying to control Dark Shadow while submerged in darkness, as the absence of light make his quirk go berserk, and on a nearby hill Uraraka was inside what appeared to be a Zorb ball, using her quirk on it to strengthen her ear canals. Ida was running long distances as a way of increasing his leg strength and stamina while Asui was scaling a mountain using her tongue as a rope to improve her muscles. Sada was eating pieces of cake while lifting weights in order to build his strength for when he uses his quirk, with Yairazu also eating food to augment her creations and decrease the time between creating objects. Gyro was stabbing her earphone jacks into solid rock to strengthen them and increase their sound quality. Ashido made acid against a rock to increase her skin's resistance to it, and Minda continuously took Pop's balls from his head to decrease his scalp's vulnerability. Lastly, Shoji was quickly creating multiple dupli arms in order to hunt down Hakakurge, who was trying to improve her stealth. Class 1B were speechless to say the least, while Eddie and Venom were either shocked by the intensity of the training or impressed by their dedication. "Oh man, this is pretty intense." Rin trembled. "You said it, kid," Eddie remarked, putting his hands on the back of his head. "Talk about pushing it to the limit," Venom said, grinning subconsciously. "Operative types will be raising your limit, maxing out your power. And the rest, you'll mostly focus on strengthening body parts related to your quirks," Vlad King explained sternly. "Now normally, these changes happen gradually as you grow, but we don't have time for that," Aizawa stated as he walked up towards Class 1B. "Your class has a lot of work to do. Once we team up with Class A, there will be 40 students here. That's a whole lot of quirks for our 2 homeroom teachers to manage on their own," Kendo said as she turned to Yanagi, who was standing next to her. "Which is why we called them," Aizawa said matter-of-factly. "That's correct. 4 kittens in 1 litter," a green-haired woman in a yellow cat costume, Ragdoll, said excitedly. "Your feline fantasies are here. Say meow." Mandalay began their motto. "Allow us to lend us a helping paw." Ragdoll continued. "We're champions serving of justice with our tails." A muscular man in a brown cat costume, Tiger, said as he flexed his arms. "Perfectly cute and cat-like heroes," Pixie Bob said. "We're the wild Pussycats. Full version." The 4 cat heroes finished as they struck their pose, while Bakugou let off another explosion behind them. "Damn it," Bakugou shouted. "I'm Ragdoll and my quirk is Search," she said, introducing herself. "I can look it up to 100 people and know everything about them, like their location and weakness. With my earth flow, I can create the ideal training ground for every student," Pixie Bob said as she created a small wave of earthly matter and rock behind them, which launched Uraraka inside her Zor ball up into the air. "And my quirk is called Telepath. I can give advice to multiple people at once," Mandalay said. "The name's Tiger and I'm here to beat you guys to a pulp," he stated. "I have questions about him," Kaibara said with concern. "He sounds like fun, Eddie," Venom said with a grin. "He literally just admitted to wanting to beat up kids," Eddie said, looking away in disbelief. "Damn it," Bakugou yelled again as he shot another explosion into the air. "All you kids with strength quirks, time for Tiger's boot camp," Tiger said as he pointed at the students of Class 1B. "Class A is already sweating, so catch up quick." The students looked over towards what sounded like panicking and saw Midoriya doing what appeared to be a pose repeatedly as some sort of exercise. "Come on, show me what you got," Tiger shouted as he moved next to Midoriya. 5% Detroit Smash, Midoriya yelled as he channeled One for All's energy throughout his body and tried to land a strong punch on Tiger. However, the only male of the Pussycats evaded the blow by contorting his body into an arch shape. "This dude can contort his body despite being so muscular," Eddie said in amazement. A split second later, Tiger then landed a left-handed uppercut on Midoriya, a move dubbed the cat punch by some fans, which sent the green-haired boy hurling into a nearby tree before falling to the ground. "If you don't push yourself, you won't shred your muscle fibers and then you won't get stronger," Tiger said. "Right, sir," Midoriya said, groaning in pain. "I can't hear you," Tiger shouted. "Right, sir," Midoriya shouted back. "He's scary," Kaibara muttered under his breath. "You want to be plus ultra, don't you?" Tiger asked as he gave off an intense aura. "Then show me what that means." "Yes, sir," Midoriya yelled in response. "That guy is way more intense than I expected," Kaibara thought. "These guys are nuts," Eddie said quietly. "These guys are crazy, and I like it," Venom exclaimed. "There's a lot going on at UA, so it's hard for us to spare much staff for the hero course first years," Vlad King explained. "Based on their experience and range of powers, these 4 were the most logical choice to help you enhance your quirks in such a short amount of time." Aizawa added. "Don't fall behind Class A. Make me proud," Vlad King said. "Yes, sir," all the Class B students responded. Midoriya fell on his back trying to catch his breath, panting heavily with each exhale as thought about all of the important moments in his life regarding One for All. "The quirk All Might passed on to me was more than I deserved. And then Gran Torino taught me how to use it in a way that wouldn't destroy my body," Midoriya thought, as All Might's words flashed in his mind. "You're overflowing with energy at the moment. With training, your body will hold it better." Midoriya clenched his fist as a more determined look appeared on his face. "I've come a long way in such a short time," Midoriya thought. "It's up to me to move forward and make this power my own." Midoriya then soon stood back up and faced Tiger before starting to yell and flex with determination, something that impressed the cross-dressing powerhouse. "That's right, tear that weak quirk apart and make it stronger," Tiger yelled. "Yes, sir," Midoriya yelled. Looks like the broccoli boy is getting fired up, Eddie, Venom said as he sprouted out of Eddie's back, surprising those who had never seen the symbiote before or caught them off guard due to the moment. I almost forgot he could do that, Kendo remarked, sweating nervously at the sight of Venom. Whoa, that's one funky-looking goo monster coming out of your back, Ragdoll commented. Well, someone with manners for once, Venom said with a grin. Because they didn't call you the P word, Eddie asked. Exactly, Venom replied. So you admit it, Eddie said, scratching his head. I never hid that I detest being called a parasite. Eddie, you just like to think that I did out of some sort of attempt to act macho, Venom said with a chuckle. As per usual, you're just here to observe and monitor their training, Aizawa said to Eddie. And even if they look completely drained, don't intervene. As Vlad said, they need to strengthen their quirks like a muscle, break it so comes back stronger and tougher. Yeah, I know, Eddie said with a nod as he began to watch the students train. After an intense day of training, the students of Class 1A and 1B were asked to prepare curry for dinner for themselves using ingredients provided by the wild Pussycats. And though they struggled at first, they did successfully make the curry and happily ate it despite a few complaints about the taste. Eddie had refrained from helping on account of the fact that it wasn't his place to help them. Not to mention didn't want Venom to try and cook anything after the disaster that was his attempt at making breakfast on the day of Cassadi's execution. Rather, he was sharing the dinner table with Aizawa, Vlad King and the wild Pussycats, chowing down on a delicious meal they prepared while also serving Venom up a plate of chicken, nuts and a mug of hot chocolate for the two to share. Hey, give me a swig, Venom barked, to which Eddie poured the hot chocolate down the symbiote's mouth. Thank you for making dinner for both of us. It would have been a nightmare if I had let him cook, Eddie said before having more of his food. I did fine, Venom insisted. You burnt literally everything. The smoothie was wet garbage and you broke the ketchup bottle, Eddie argued. Sounds like that one time Tiger tried to make burritos, nearly burnt the house down, Ragdoll commented gleefully. Oh please, I put out the flames before it spread past the oven, Tiger said defiantly. You're missing the point. Fire could kill me and yet I tried to cook anyway knowing I could have died, Venom exclaimed. Oh, so that's your weakness then, Pixie Bob said with a devious smirk. Good to know. And sound. Both Eddie and Ragdoll chimed in. Eddie, why have you betrayed me? Venom roared angrily. Oh relax, I'm not going to let them hurt you, Eddie assured as he finished his food. Coda, it's time for dinner, Mandalay called out. Where are you? I think I saw him outside, Eddie said as he stood up. I've finished eating, so I'll go and look for him. You don't have to do that, Eddie, Mandalay insisted. No, it's fine, I'll be right back, Eddie said as he went outside the log, to which he saw Midoriya standing near the doorway staring off into the distance. Wake up, broccoli boy, Venom shouted, causing Midoriya to snap out of his 1,000-yard stare. Midoriya, you doing okay there, buddy? Eddie asked. Huh? Oh Eddie, I didn't see you there, Midoriya said, scratching his head nervously. I just think I saw Koda walk off into the woods by himself. Mandalay just made him dinner, so I was going to fetch him for her, Eddie said. Hey Eddie, Midoriya asked as his tone got more serious. What's up, kid? Eddie asked back. Have you noticed how distant Koda has been since we got here? Midoriya wondered. You mean because of how his parents died fighting a villain? Eddie retorted, surprising Midoriya. I'm guessing they told you what happened to him. Yeah, and so I understand why he's not a big fan of heroes, but I just wish I could show him the good that they've done, that it's not a lost cause, Midoriya said, looking to the ground. Tell you what, go grab a bowl of curry and we'll follow him to wherever he's headed to, Eddie suggested. Alright, Midoriya said with a nod as he went to dish up some curry, and soon enough he and the symbiote host headed after Koda, following his footsteps towards what looked to be a cave on the side of a mountain. I could have sworn we saw this cave before, Eddie thought as they soon approached where Koda was, whose stomach was growly loud enough for all three of them to hear. We heard that, Midoriya said, getting Koda's attention as he turned around and scowled angrily at him and Eddie. No way. How'd you two find this place? Koda exclaimed. Oh sorry, we followed your footsteps, Midoriya said as he approached Koda with the bowl of curry. I thought you might want some dinner before it gets cold. Your cousin was concerned when you didn't show up at dinner, so I volunteered to come find you, Eddie said, putting his hands in his pockets. Whatever, I'm just fine. Get lost and mind your own business, freak, Koda retorted venomously. Whoa, that is uncalled for, young man, Venom exclaimed, angering the young child more. I don't want to hang out with you, so forget about my secret hideout, Koda said, turning his head away from both Midoriya and Eddie. Midoriya looked around the cave before speaking to Koda again. This is a secret hideout, he asked, making both Eddie and Venom cringe. Dude, that was just dumb what you said there, Venom said bluntly. HMPH, spending your entire life trying to improve your quirk. It's dumb. Kota snapped at Midoriya. All you want to do is show off. Midoriya lowered his head while Kota then looked at Eddie and Venom with the same level of resentment. And you, I overheard what my cousin and the others said, that you're a criminal trying to keep yourself out of prison. You're just a no-good thug with some disgusting quote-unquote alien inside your body, trying to pretend that it's not just some living quirk. Get lost. Both of you. Though Eddie was hurt by Kota's words, he kept his composure, but Venom was furious as he formed a scowl on his face. Why, you little she, Venom growled before being silenced by Eddie. Hey, about your parents, I was wondering, were they the water hose heroes with the water quirks? Midoriya asked, to which Kota became visibly uncomfortable as he widened his eyes. Did Mandalay tell you? Kota demanded. No, it's well, sorry, Midoriya said, lowering his head slightly before scratching his head. But I heard a little about what happened to them. And based on that information I figured. I remember reading about that horrible incident a few years ago. Go away, Kota said angrily as he turned away from Midoriya and Eddie. Everyone here is so crazy, calling people stupid names like hero and villain and then killing each other because of it. Always focusing on their quirks. If they hadn't been showing off, they'd still be here. Idiots. Is that what you think of your parents? That they were idiots, kid? Eddie asked, to which Kota looked visibly disturbed by this question, but did not relent. It's not just heroes, Kota hates quirks in this entire superhuman society. Midoriya thought sadly. We're done here, go back to camp with the other losers. Kota roared. Hey my friend, Midoriya tried to say, only to be cut off by Eddie. I think that's enough, kid, he doesn't want to hear your story, Eddie said, as he stood in between the hero in training and the superpower-hating youth. Isn't that right, Kota? You heard enough sob stories as it is and heard so many times how your parents were brave and died honorably. Will you two just leave me alone already? Go away, Kota yelled angrily. I'm sorry, I guess Midoriya, don't apologize to this little punk, Eddie said with an assertive tone as he looked at Kota. You know, kid, you're not exactly wrong. All this talk of heroes and villains and powers, it all sounds so ridiculous, doesn't it? And yet it's nothing like the romanticized tales you'd hear growing up. It's brutal and cruel. Kota got more visibly frustrated and angry by Eddie's words. Are you deaf? I told you. No, the grown-ups are talking now, kid. So listen up. Eddie interrupted, raising his voice at Kota, which caught him off guard slightly. You hate quirks and anything that's related to them because in your mind, it's what took your parents away. And if this world was just full of normal quirkless people, then they'd be alive, and you wouldn't be alone up in this cave hiding from the people who still care about you. You don't know anything, so just shut up. Kota roared. I know you stare at the world with eyes clouded by hatred, and that all you want to do deep down is find some way to just smash and break things, and maybe even get revenge on the bastard who killed your parents, Eddie said without hesitation or pause. Stop talking, you freak, Kota yelled. And there you go, deflecting and insulting me and everyone else just because you can't love yourself, that you hate everyone and everything. But especially you hate what you are, the son of heroes. Eddie spat at Kota. Kota screamed as he tried to punch Eddie in the groin, similar to what he did to Midoriya. But Venom created a tendril out of Eddie's body and wrapped it around Kota's arm, locking on tight to it so that he couldn't break free. Let me go, Kota shouted as he tried to pry the tendril off with his free hand, but to no avail. Eddie, what are you doing, Midoriya? Before Venom glared at the green-haired boy to silence him. I'm sorry for your loss. I know what you're going through. They were so brave and so strong. No doubt people have fed you those lines to death now, but I'm not here to offer bullshit condolences. Kota, I'm here to actually talk to you, to make you realize that what you're doing right now is dangerous. Eddie explained sternly. You have so much hate and misery in your heart, so much pain, and that's going to grow and spread until you're nothing but a bad day away from making the worst mistake of your life. Both Midoriya and Kota were taken aback by Eddie's harsh, but well-meaning words. Yes, I've done some things I'm not proud of, and I often wonder if I'll make up for the times I hurt people or disregard others' feelings and well-being. But I know wallowing around in spite and anger isn't going to fix anything. Stop trying to push people away. Mandalay cares about you and yet you act like such an ungrateful brat towards her. But I'm not you, Kota. I'm not going to make decisions for you. Only you can decide what happens next, Eddie said before turning around and looking at Midoriya. Come on, kid, let's leave him alone for now. Midoriya slowly nodded before leaving the bowl of curry there. I'll just leave this here in case you want it, he said before he and Eddie walked off, leaving Kota alone to his own devices. Kota was not expecting such a lecture, especially from someone who was more or less a criminal on parole. However, he would be lying if he didn't think the words didn't make him feel something, even if he was still angry. Several miles away from the summer camp, a small group of villains working under the League started to gather, One of them was Dabai, who was the self-appointed leader of this small squad, as well as Toga, a schoolboy wearing a gas mask called Mustard and a hooded cloak figure with a white mask on, who was actually a mass-murdering villain known as Muscular. You know, I'm even more glad I found you, Carnage, because now I don't need that ugly gear that they wanted me to use. All I need is you, Toga remarked with a smile as she morphed one of her hands into a red and black claw, feeling the organic matter around it with admiration. You're too kind, sis, Carnage said with a giggle. They were engineered from the black market, from what I hear. You should have been more worried about if they worked, not if they looked pretty, Mustard stated. But I suppose it doesn't matter now since you do have that creature inside of you. Well, it could have been more stylish, but either way I have the perfect gear right at my fingertips, Toga said before changing her transformed arm into a curved blade and swung it at the air before retracting it back into her body. Hi, darlings. Sorry to keep you waiting. A woman with a muscular build, known as Magni, called out as she was walking towards the group. Get to work. Get to work. A man covered in a black straitjacket that only revealed his mouth, known as Moonfish, muttered. The last newcomer was a reptile-like man with purple hair and was sporting a white mask and red scarf, who gave off a menacing smile as he adjusted his mask and looked out towards the camp. That makes 7 of us, Dabai stated. I don't care, just let me loose, Muscular said, clenching his fingers restlessly. I'm too pumped up to stand by. Could have at least let me fight you in your red and black goo monster, little girl. And I would peel the flesh off your bones and gnaw on your skull and brains, you muscle-bound moron. Carnage hissed after sprouting out of Toga's body. Shut your mouths, you crazy bastards, Dabai hissed, turning his head to face them before facing forward, continuing to speak. We wait. We're expecting 3 more people to join our little party. The League of Villains made a mistake going after them with a bunch of random thugs at the USJ. Better to use a small group of elites. The first thing we have to do is take away their sense of peace and show them that their lives rest in our hands. Carnage looked off in the distance where the summer camp before started to growl and hiss, catching Toga and the others' attention. What's wrong, girl? Don't like it up here? Toga asked. I sense him, Carnage replied in a serious tone. Him? Mustard wondered. The one who made me my father, he is here, and when we find him, he will die. Carnage roared. The next day of the camp started, with Class 1A and 1B getting back to working on their quirks with the sound of Coda screaming at the horizon being one of the many sights to see. However, not everyone did well on their final exams, and so Sato, Kaminari, Shiro, Ashido, and Kirishima were given extra lessons that took up more of their time and left them exhausted the day after. Eddie was watching the training happen while sitting on a fold-up chair drinking coffee. Hey, remedial group, keep at it, Aizawa said as he pulled Kirishima back by the head with his binding cloth. Yes, sir, Kirishima grunted. Youch, that's gotta hurt, Eddie said, cringing at the sight of the cloth pulling against Kirishima's head tightly. He'll pull his head off if he's not careful, Venom commented. Sorry, but I need more beauty rest, Ashido said tiredly. Who knew yesterday's extra lessons? Kaminari muttered. Would go on until 2 in the morning. Shiro whined. And start back up at 7. Sato continued. I told you it'd be tough. Remember, you're not just improving your quirks, you're also working to overcome many weaknesses I saw in the finals, Aizawa explained, to which the 5 students jolted at what he said, before he began to pull his cloth harder on Kirishima. Think carefully about why you're more tired than the others before you start whining. You have much to improve here, right? Yes, sir, all 5 of them exclaimed. Ever the drill sergeant, Aizawa. Eddie called out. Zip it, Brock. Uraraka, Aoyama, the same goes for you, Aizawa said, addressing the 2 as Aoyama got out of a portable toilet and Uraraka carried a rock with her quirk. Your team didn't fail, but you were very close. I'd say you passed the proverbial finish line by a hair. That bad? Uraraka exclaimed. Don't lose focus. Each of you could move faster, Aizawa continued. And no matter what you're doing, just remember where you started from. Don't forget who you were before UA. Always keep in mind why you're sweating and why your limits keep getting tested. That's what it means to improve. Where I started, Bakugou thought. Who I am, Todoroki thought. How I got here, Midoriya thought. To which he realized something and decided to approach Aizawa. That reminds me, Mr. Aizawa, it's already the 3rd day of camp. Weren't you listening? Stay focused, Aizawa said, landing next to Midoriya. I was just wondering if if the other teachers from UA will be joining us, Midoriya said. You really worship that blonde Herculean idiot, don't you? Venom remarked with a groan. I swear it's nearly all he talks about. All Might's the best. All Might's invincible. He's the coolest in the universe. Well, can he beat Superman? I don't think so. Superman isn't real, dude, Eddie said before sipping his coffee. But if he were real, he'd send All Might into space and throw him into the sun. Venom exclaimed. Like I said before we came out here, to keep the camp a secret from the villains, hardly anyone knows where we are. Aizawa said. That's why you get to work with us 4 Pussycats. Ragdoll shouted excitedly. And think about it, we believe All Might is one of the League's targets, so we can't have him here. It's for your own safety, Aizawa explained before he began to walk away. For better or worse, that's what he gets for standing out so much. Seems like it's mostly for worse these days, Midoriya thought, then looked down as he closed his right hand into a fist. So that's it, All Might won't be here to help me. I wish we could help out with their training, but we aren't allowed to interfere, plus some of the students' quirk would leave us at a disadvantage. Eddie said. What if we did what they were doing? Venom asked. Meaning? Eddie asked back. Tearing muscle fibers. Maybe we could train to better resist fire and sound, Venom suggested. And how do we do that without killing ourselves? Eddie asked with a brow raised. Well, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. Plus I'm saying we have someone blast fire or sonic waves at us. Maybe start small, like a candle or a speaker. Venom explained. That doesn't sound half bad, Eddie remarked. Meow, 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 meow. More importantly, tonight's gonna be fun, Pixie Bob exclaimed excitedly. We're pitting classes against each other in a test of courage. I know you've been training hard today, and later you'll get to play hard. How's that for a reward? It just sounds like more training, Kendo groaned. And training in the dark, no less, Gyro sighed. Revelry in the dark, Takoyami simply said. Edgelord, Venom roared as he sprouted from Eddie. Shut up, Eddie said, shoving coffee down Venom's throat. How much can we do in one day? Rin asked. Haha, at least we get to beat Class A, am I right? Monomer remarked exhaustedly. Don't slack now. Make sure you keep pushing yourself as you work, Pixie Bob called out. Yes, ma'am. The students near Pixie Bob shouted back. Remember where I came from, Midoriya mumbled before Tiger snapped him from his thoughts. Hey, he said with his intimidating aura radiating from his body once more. You're not plus ultra yet. Right, Midoriya said before running back to continue his training with Tiger. So do you want to try it, Eddie? Venom asked. What? No, we're only allowed to do that back at school outside of class, Eddie insisted. Can't we just practice with a match or candle? Venom suggested. You're gonna scream like a bitch if I stick a flame near you, Eddie argued. No, I won't, Venom shouted. Yes, you will, Eddie argued. I won't, Venom roared. Alright, then let's prove it, Eddie said as he picked up a set of matches and began to light one of them, creating a small flame. Show me you can have this lit match near your face for more than a minute. Ready, ready, Venom responded as he slowly moved his head towards the match, feeling its heat more and more as he got closer. Eddie moved the match closer, to which Venom started showing visible discomfort being in front of it, flinching at first before staring at the flame with a glare. Venom, however, stayed close, despite feeling the sensation of pain rushing through his black amorphous body, while Eddie kept holding the match to his face. See, I told you I could arg, Venom screamed as part of his face caught on fire. Oh shit, Eddie exclaimed as he started to use a towel to try and put out the flames. Stay still. This was a bad idea, Venom roared in pain. I told you we should have waited till we got back, Eddie yelled as he kept trying to douse the flames and apply water to Venom. Okay, I think it's out. No, it's still going. Shit. In the distance, Ragdoll and Pixie Bob couldn't help but laugh at Venom's and Eddie's expense. Students had mixed reactions, with some being concerned. Some were slightly annoyed while others thought it was quite funny too. Eddie successfully put out the flames by dunking Venom's head into a nearby well, creating an audible simmer as smoke and vapor rose from the water. Venom rose back up, coughing and gasping like Eddie was also doing. Alright, Eddie will wait, Venom panted in exhaustion before retracted into Eddie's body. Night fell on the summer camp, and after dinner the wild Pussycats organized the game of courage they spoke about. The game was basically a makeshift horror attraction where one class provides scares and the other class has a duo of students go around in a circle and try to brave through each of the students' attempts to scare one another. However, 5 of Class 1A's students were not allowed to complete due to remedial lessons, which made the count uneven and led to Midoriya being by himself. Eddie and Venom chose to remain at the log, sitting on the balcony as he looked towards the night sky. Didn't want to watch their little game, Eddie? Venom asked. No, just some kids trying to scare each other. Nothing special about that, Eddie said with a sigh. I hope Anne is okay, wherever she and Dan are. She'll be fine. Eddie, let her go. She's safe back in our universe, Venom said. I know. It feels like it's been ages since we were home where all we really needed to worry about was cops, Eddie said, before letting out a yawn. Maybe we should just hit the hay early tonight and maybe see what tomorrow brings. However, a large purple fog could be seen emerging within the forest, with rising black smoke and several blue flames burning the trees behind the fog. What the hell is that? Eddie said, standing up as he widened his eyes. Where there's smoke, there's fire, Venom said nervously. I think you were right, pal, Eddie said with a glare. They did find the camp. Everyone, Mandalay called out with urgency through her quirk. 2 villains attacked us. It's possible that there are more coming. Everyone returned to camp immediately. We're regrouping. Do not engage any enemies. That's Mandalay's voice, Eddie said, surprised. I heard she had one-way telepathy, so this must be a message from her. Do we stay put? Remain at the camp like she told us to? Venom asked. To hell with that. We made a promise in case a situation like this happened, Eddie said as he clenched his fist. Time to suit up. Oh yeah, the lethal protector is back, Venom exclaimed as he transformed, covering Eddie's body in black organic matter as he became his large muscular self and quickly sprinted off. Up near Koda's cave, Midoriya was down on the ground beaten up and was starting to bleed from the top of his head after attempting to defend against Muscular's attacks. Midoriya was the only other person that knew about Koda's hideout and quickly made his way to bring Koda back to the camp safely, but then had to protect Koda from being killed by Muscular, diving in to grab the younger boy and barely avoided Muscular's punch. Meanwhile, Muscular recognized young Midoriya and remembered that he and the others were told that they were allowed to kill him, and so used his quirk to enhance his right arm and punched Midoriya with a right hook, to which Midoriya blocked but ended up crashing into the side of the cave. Muscular then asked Midoriya if he knew where Bakugou was, but Midoriya didn't respond and Muscular continued to attack him until he was knocked to the ground. Ha 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 ha, yes, blood is exactly what I wanted from you, Muscular said excitedly, before proceeding to mock Midoriya. What did you promise? That everything would be okay. How's that working out for you, huh? Don't just lay there, stupid. That muscle quirk of his is too powerful. I need a plan, Midoriya thought as he was starting to stand up, but shaking as he was in severe pain. If I worry about Kaken right now, I'm dead. I have to focus on the enemy in front of me. Midoriya then charged up his quirk and tried to punch Muscular. Smash. However, his punch was blocked by Muscular's arm and had no effect on the villain at all. What? Is that all you got? You're fast but not strong enough to hurt me, Muscular remarked before shoving Midoriya away with his arm hard enough to make him tumble across the ground. More muscle fibers then started to grow around and protrude from Muscular's arms. My quirk increases my speed and strength so exponentially that my muscle fibers can't even be contained by my own skin, Muscular stated. I know I'm bragging a bit, but come on. I guess what I'm trying to say is, you're just an inferior version of me. Muscular then rushed forward and punched down towards Midoriya, but then the villain's punch was caught by a black clawed hand, as in between Midoriya and Muscular stood a fully transformed Venom, much to the surprise of the hero in training, Koda and Muscular himself. Mind if I cut in? Venom said as his grin widened. Hey, I recognize you, Muscular said as he continued to try and push against Venom's grasp. You're that vigilante during the Hasu incident. Is that Venom? Midoriya thought in shock, realizing where he had seen this form before. Throughout the entire time he's been at UA, he never showed us what Venom was capable of, and now I understand why. Why don't you pick on someone your own size, you roided up freight train? Venom remarked before pushing Muscular back. Broccoli boy, you okay? I'm still alive, Midoriya replied as he slowly stood back up. But Eddie, no Venom you. Do you want to protect the little brat or not? Stay focused, we'll talk later, Venom roared. Finally, I was wondering if I would ever get an actual fight on this mission, and I just so happened to run into the vigilante who's been pissing Shigaraki off this whole time. Muscular yelled with a psychotic smirk. So the League sees us as enemies too, Eddie thought. Makes sense, those Namu monsters that Venom ate came from them. Let's do this, Muscular exclaimed as he used his other hand to punch Venom in the face. Venom ducked out of the way of the punch, feeling the force of it move past his shoulder, before landing an uppercut into Muscular's torso, striking with enough force to knock him off his feet before hitting him with a punt kick that put against the mountain. Muscular quickly recovered in order to block another punch from Midoriya before attempting to fight him again, only for Venom to leap in front of the punch and create a shield that redirected the force back at Muscular, making some of the muscle fibers on his arms snap off. Muscular smiled, however, at this more impressive foe, and was able to grab Venom by the neck and started to slam the symbiote warrior into the ground a couple of times, leaving a small crater from the impact. Venom fortunately broke out of his hold and sidestepped out of Midoriya's way, who aimed his hands at the mass-murdering villain and flicked his fingers, creating high-pressure blasts of air that struck Muscular's body, pushing him back but did not penetrate his muscles' defenses. "You're starting to bore me, kid. Why don't you run along so me and this black behemoth can have a real fight?" Muscular roared with delight. "No, I made a promise to Kota, and I intend to keep it," Midoriya proclaimed as he took a stance next to Venom. "Not that I'm agreeing with the literal muscly-bound psycho. Your attacks haven't really been helpful so far," Venom said before clenching his fists and licking his teeth. "I have to keep fighting, otherwise I can't call myself a hero," Midoriya yelled as he rushed towards Muscular and channeled One for All's energy into his arm, throwing a strong punch on the villain's torso. Smash! However, the blow did not damage him, just like most of Midoriya's attacks so far. Muscular chuckled maniacally as he prepared to strike the green-haired student again. "I can't help but laugh at you, kid," Muscular exclaimed as he struck Midoriya with a punch that sent him flying towards Venom, who was able to catch Midoriya before he could hit the ground. "You really think you're a hero, don't you? How are you going to save him, huh? Don't make promises you can't keep. Live up to your words or they don't mean anything. You're no hero, you're just a fraud, and you'll die that way. Shigaraki wanted to kill you himself, Vigilante, but I think I'll just help myself to you instead. Yeah, you want a piece of me, tough guy? Then come get some, for we are Venom," Venom roared after putting Midoriya down. But before Muscular moved forward to attack the symbiote again, he suddenly felt a small rock hit the back of his head, then turned around to see Kota with tears in his eyes. "Remember Water Hose? My mom and my dad, did you torment the two of them too, before you killed them?" Kota asked while slowly starting to sob. Midoriya and Venom were both shocked at the revelation that Muscular was the one who killed Kota's parents, both having a mix of anger and surprise on their faces. "Huh? Seriously? Those losers were your parents?" Muscular asked as he turned to face Kota. "Well then, this must be fate. The Water Hose Heroes, they're the reason I have an artificial eye in my left socket right now. This is all your fault. Nothing in the world is right anymore and it's because of crazy people like you," Kota cried out. "Little kids are always so quick to say it's someone else's fault," Muscular said, shutting Kota up and filling him with more dread. "Don't get the wrong idea. It's not like I took them out because I was mad about the eye thing. I wanted to kill people. It's as simple as that, and those two tried to stop me. What happened was the result of all of us doing our best. The real travesty is promising something you aren't able to do. That's why your dear old mommy and daddy died." Muscular then built up more muscle fibers and was about to kill Kota with a full power punch. He felt something wrapped around his feet and pulled him down to his knees, to which he looked down and saw black tendrils tightly around him that were coming out of Venom's arms. "You think you can stop me from killing this brat by holding my legs down? My muscle fibers can break out of anything. You no good Vigilante," Muscular roared as he grinned with delight. "Now, Midoriya, Eddie," Venom yelled, to which Muscular saw Midoriya leap toward him at blinding speeds. "Nice try with the sneak attack, but I'm ready," Muscular yelled as he tried to break out of Venom's grip, but the lethal protector simply tightened it, which surprised the villain. "You ruined his life, and you won't take the blame," Midoriya exclaimed. "Got you now. Doesn't matter how quick you are. But what's your next move?" Muscular asked as he was about to punch Midoriya with his other fist. "You gonna punch me with that puny quirk of yours again? It's not a matter of whether or not I can do it," Midoriya yelled as he reeled his arm back while building up energy. "A hero's job is to risk his life to turn his promises into a reality." "What?" Muscular thought. "One for all 100%. Midoriya thought before the right part of his shirt was ripped off from all the power that was being put into his arm. "Wait, there's something different about him," Muscular thought, being caught off guard by the sudden change from the hero in training. Smash! The impact of Midoriya's punch created an intense shockwave that split the rock and ground beneath them, blowing debris in each like a powerful hurricane. Venom leaped in front of Kota before anchoring his body and shielding the young boy from any rocks that blew past them, as well as the strong current created from the punch. As the smoke cleared from the split rock's collision, Midoriya landed near Venom and Kota, his right arm broken and heavily bruised while his shirt was torn in half. "Shit, glad to see you're still alive," Venom remarked. Is Kota okay?" Midoriya said as he grasped his broken arm in pain. Venom gestured behind him as they saw that Kota was fortunately unharmed. "Thank you both of you," Kota said, then noticed the damage on Midoriya's body. "Let all get back to camp, it's not far." Before Midoriya could finish his sentence, Muscular burst out from underneath the debris that was piled onto him, using all the muscle fibers on the upper half of his body before they retracted back into his skin. "What the F?" Venom exclaimed in disbelief. "No way. It can't be," Midoriya thought fearfully as he turned back to Muscular. "I was at 100% same as All Might's power. Aw, a bit too obvious. But hey, not too bad, Midoriya," Muscular remarked as he then walked towards him. No, stay away, Midoriya shouted. No, attacking sounds more fun, Muscular said back, getting closer and closer. It's no good. What am I supposed to do now? Midoriya thought frantically. I just need some time to think. Midoriya, a familiar voice shouted, to which Midoriya in question as well as Muscular turned to see Venom with half his face open, revealing half of Eddie's face underneath. Take Kota and get the hell out of here. Leave him to us. But I can't leave you here to fight him alone, Midoriya shouted back. Don't be a dumbass, kid. You're in no condition to keep on fighting. Protect the boy, that's what matters, Eddie retorted. Aizawa will be pissed if you end up dead on my watch, so just go already. Midoriya wanted to object and keep fighting, especially because he wanted to give Kota someone to hope for, to break him out of his darkness. But he knew Eddie was right, and that staying here would only lead to him risking Kota's life again. Midoriya nodded towards Eddie before looking at Kota. Quickly, get on my back, Kota, and hold on tight, Midoriya said, not taking his eyes off Muscular as Kota complied with the request as he climbed on Midoriya's back. Who told you that you could leave? We're not finished until I split you open and see all your blood, Muscular yelled as he surrounded his body in thicker muscle fibers before attempting to land a punch on Midoriya. However, his torso was grabbed by black tendrils and he was pulled towards Venom, who threw him against the side of the mountain and left a decent-sized impact. Don't die on me, Eddie. Venom, Midoriya yelled as he activated full cowling and as quickly as he could, rushed down the mountain with a surge of green electricity. Venom's face fully closed back up as he turned to face Muscular, who pulled himself out of the indent the lethal protector made before he grinned once more. I'm so glad that the League finally let me off the leash. Muscular then reached into his pocket, with a couple of artificial eyes falling out before attaching a large red one on his left socket. Because I was just messing around with Midoriya earlier, having fun. But now I'm serious. Truth be told, he's stronger than I thought he was, but you'll have to do instead since you've stopped me from fighting him. A grown man trying to kill a bunch of kids, now that's just low, Venom roared before taking a stance. But since they're gone now, we can stop holding back too, so bring it on, you son of a bitch. Come on then, Muscular shouted before he made his muscle fibers cover his torso and arms and charged at Venom, winding up his right arm for a punch against the symbiote. Venom weaved around the punch before he struck Muscular with a hard punch to the villain's chest, and then started to make fists fly, continuously landing fisticuffs across Muscular's body with each strike meaning to try and hit with enough force to break through his muscle fibers. Muscular's smirk grew as he powered through each of Venom's strikes and punched the symbiote, launching him to the other side of the mountain and then leaped over to follow him. Venom's impact site had a small crater from the force, but he couldn't admire it as he quickly dodged another punch from Muscular before grabbing both of the villain's hands, forcing the two powerhouses to push against one another like two sumo wrestlers. Muscular added another layer of fibers while Venom tensed up his body and gained slightly larger muscles as they kept pushing against each to try and see who would fall first. They both then let go, in which the force blew both Venom and Muscular back. Both then wound up a punch and threw it to one another, causing the fists to clash and create a strong shockwave that carved up more of the mountain they were standing upon. This is madness. Those muscle fibers keep growing back thicker each time, Venom snarled. If only I could make weapons to pierce him with. Wait a minute, Venom, I have an idea. You in? Eddie asked within Venom's body. Oh, I see what you're getting at, but are you sure it will work, Eddie? Venom asked before he countered another one of Muscular's punches with one of his own, then ducked out of the way of yet another attack. We just need to get a good shot, find an opening and strike it, Eddie replied, to which Venom nodded in agreement as he formed two tendrils and ensnared Muscular with them. Muscular tried to free himself from Venom's grasp, trying to grow more muscle fibers on his body, in which he tried to pry the tendrils off his body with his increased strength. Venom could feel the organic matter slowly tearing around his tendrils as he finally let go of Muscular, and lunged at him with a shoulder charge as he formed more tendrils on his back. Muscular was knocked into the side of the mountain again, but quickly recovered and decided to fire off his own flurry of punches, each one hitting with more force than the other as Venom formed a shield to block them. Venom gritted his teeth as he saw each punch was weakening the shield, and so he moved the tendrils forward and began to spin them in rapid succession. As he leaped away from Muscular's uppercut, though felt enough force from the attack brushed against his body. Is this all you got, Venom? If so, then I'm not impressed. Muscular roared as he formed several layers of muscle fibers on his right arm and threw it forward as a megaton punch. Venom then quickly sidestepped the attack as he wrapped the spinning tendrils around his arms before he plunged the makeshift drills into Muscular's arm. Muscle fibers were drilled into it, tearing away layer after layer until the spinning tendrils reached his true arm, spraying blood from each entry point as the muscle fibers began to fall off. "What the F?" Muscular screamed as he felt the sensation of pain rush throughout his body from the symbiote's drill attack. He hardened and spun those tentacles fast enough to turn them into a drill strong enough to pierce my muscles. Venom let out a roar before he drilled the tendrils in deeper, and with a strong grip he tore Muscular's right arm clean off its socket, spraying more blood and muscle fibers on the ground. The pain forced Muscular to his knees, grunting and growling as he grasped his freshly made nub before Venom kicked him with enough force to knock him back over to Koda's cave, and then landed soon after near the mass-murdering villain. Muscular tried to stand back up, only for the lethal protector to punch him to the ground, and after digging his clawed hands into his remaining arm, he ripped it clean off too, spraying more blood from the new nub created from his mutilation as Muscular screamed in pain. "Hurts, doesn't it, asshole?" Venom said before lifting Muscular up by his neck. "We were going to play nice while with these kids, but they're not here right now." Muscular then started to chuckle faintly before looking at Venom. "Looks like you got me. Vigilante, guess that means Shigaraki will get to kill you yet. But are you really going to kill me? Aren't you friends with that Midoriya brat who wants to be a hero? Good guys don't kill people." Venom's face morphed into an angry scowl as half of his face opened, to show that Eddie wore the same scowl. "I'm no good guy," Eddie said coldly, as Venom's face closed back up. Before Muscular could register what happened, Venom bit down on the villain's skull, splitting it in two before yanking his entire head off its body and swallowing it, leaving a bloody and visceral mess everywhere as he dropped the now headless Muscular's body. Venom looked at the forest in front of him, hearing chaos unfold around him as he used his senses to see that there were more students in danger. "Let's feast on some villains," Venom roared as he sprinted off and leaped into the night to battle with the rest of the Vanguard action squad. Midoriya moved through the forest swiftly as he carried the young Koda on his back. He was hesitant at first, but he allowed Venom to handle Muscular, noting that he couldn't afford to injure his body further and fortunately chose to minimize use of his legs so he could flee the battle with Koda. Many things were going through the green-haired boy's mind, but one of them was the revelation that Eddie and Venom were the vigilante from Hasu, the one that ate Anamu's brain, which caused the media to believe he was not only lethal but cannibalistic too. Is this why he was here? To avoid prison for his crimes? Just what else were they hiding from us? Midoriya thought but shook his head. That doesn't matter right now. What matters is keeping Koda safe and alerting Aizawa and the Pussycats that the League are targeting some of the students. If every villain attacking us tonight is on the same level, all our lives are at stake. Midoriya said out loud as he stopped moving to take his breath, putting Koda down while doing so. "I may be injured, but I'm not defeated yet. There are more people I can save, and right now we're going to need help that only you can provide, Koda." "Me?" Koda said in surprise. "I might be speculating here, but am I right to assume you have a water quirk like your parents?" Midoriya asked. Koda then hesitantly nodded in response. "Then we'll need it to put out the fire started by one of the villains, as none of the others here have a quirk specifically capable of extinguishing flames, and I highly doubt Todoroki's ice will do much good in this situation." Midoriya explained. "Can you do that, Koda? Can we rely on you for help this time?" Koda said nervously before wiping away the tears from his eyes. "What the hell, I guess I'll try, but only because I owe you and that freak for saving me." Midoriya then smiled and bowed to Koda. "Thank you, Koda." The two then heard a noise, sounding as if someone was approaching their location. Midoriya got in front of Koda to defend him, but he breathed a sigh of relief when he saw that it was Aizawa. Aizawa had been alerted by Mandalay's telepathy like everyone else, and when he rushed out to assist in the ongoing fight, he was ambushed by Dabai, though in truth it was a clone created by another villain, the black and white clad twice who had somewhat of a fractured mind. Aizawa would have kept going, but heard someone call out to him. "Mr. Aizawa," Midoriya called out, to which the class 1 teacher stopped in his tracks and looked at the two children. "Midoriya," Aizawa said in confusion before looking to see that Midoriya had been badly injured. "You're here. Thank goodness. I need to catch you up on what I've learned about the villains, but we don't have much time," Midoriya said frantically. "Hey," Aizawa tried to interrupt Midoriya. "Plus I need to find Mandalay. There's something I need to tell her," Midoriya quickly added, but was cut off by Aizawa. "Hold on," Aizawa said. "Please take care of Koda while I'm gone," Midoriya pleaded, his words and demeanor radiating exhaustion and fatigue. "This kid is running on pure adrenaline," Aizawa thought as Midoriya was speaking. "Protect him. I'll be back soon," Midoriya said as he attempted to run off again. "Wait, Midoriya," Aizawa called out, to which Midoriya stopped and turned towards him. Those injuries, you went too far again, didn't you? Have you forgotten about Hasu? Kota would have died if I had done nothing. Midoriya argued. Besides, I only hit the villain a few times. Eddie and Venom are fighting him while I was taking Kota to safety, so he was able to find you then. Good, Aizawa said with a sigh. But Mr. Aizawa, answer me this, Midoriya said with a bolder tone. Why didn't you tell us they were the vigilante from Hasu? Aizawa groaned before scratching his head. I told you the day the class met Mr. Brock that the specifics on his crimes were confidential. Even so, he trusted us enough to reveal Venom was an alien, but not that he ate people. Midoriya retorted. Do you really think right now is the best time to be worrying about that? The camp is under attack and our students are in danger, Aizawa said sternly, to which Midoriya remembered the situation they were in and nodded at his teacher. All right, I understand. Protecting my classmates comes first. Go, but tell Mandalay something for me too, Aizawa ordered as he gave Midoriya some information. A few hundred meters away in a clearing where the heart of the Vanguard Action Squad's invasion started, Mandalay and Tiger were fighting villains Spinner and Magni as they protected their unconscious comrade Pixie Bob while the other students went back to the log or to help their classmates who were in the forest still. Tiger was furiously throwing punches and slaps at Magni, but she kept blocking each one with her forearms without much effort, showcasing that the magnetic villain was also a physical threat naturally. No fair. Back off, Magni said as she began to dodge Tiger's attacks. Let me equip my item. Damn it, how is he predicting my cat combats? Tiger thought as he kept trying to swipe at Magni. Meanwhile, Mandalay was frantically dodging the attacks of the reptilian-stained fanboy Spinner, who swung his colossal makeshift sword made from several knives and blades at her with the intent to kill. You're not, Spinner yelled as he swung his sword horizontally and prepared for another swing. Mandalay dodged the first attack and barely dodged the vertical swing Spinner tried to hit her with. A real hero, Spinner yelled once more before bringing the sword overhead. You brought this on yourself, girl. Geez, you're persistent, Mandalay said after dodging the overhead swing. As are you, Spinner stated as he then jumped and was about to strike at Mandalay again. But it's time to knock you off your false throne. However, before Spinner could hit Mandalay, his sword was shattered into pieces by a drop kick courtesy of a full cowling empowered Midoriya, making Spinner mutter in disbelief at the young powerhouse's action. Mandalay, Kota, he's safe, Midoriya yelled as he was free falling. You found him, Mandalay said in both surprise and relief. And I got a message from Mr. Aizawa, Midoriya continued as he skidded along the ground. We need you to use telepath. Tell everyone in Class A and Class B that Eraserhead has granted them permission to engage in combat with the villains. Though surprised, Mandalay nodded in agreement as she sent the message out across the forest to all of the students. Everyone in Class A and Class B. In the name of the pro-hero, Eraserhead, you are granted permission to engage in combat. Mandalay relayed urgently. I repeat, use your training. You may fight these villains. Midoriya was panting heavily as the endorphins inside of his system would slowly go away and render his body useless once he gained a clearer head. Get back to camp right now, Mandalay ordered as she leaped forward and attacked Spinner with an axe kick. Those injuries aren't normal. I'm sorry, I can't, Midoriya called out as he stood up and ran towards Magni, who was still occupied in fighting Tiger. You need to send one more thing. The villains, I know one reason they're here. You're after Kaken, but you know him as Katsuki Bakugou. Please, you have to let the others know. Bakugou? No, wait. Stop, Mandalay called out, but to no avail, as Midoriya charged towards Magni. That rumble in the ground earlier, only 2 people in our group fight with that kind of power, and sounds like one of them topped. Could it have possibly been Muscular? Don't tell that little kid is more powerful than him, Magni thought, surprised by the notion that Midoriya could have defeated her comrade. In that case, this child must be put down. Magni then dodged Tiger's attacks before lunging towards Midoriya and trying to hit with a punch. Don't mince him, Magni, Spinner shouted as he threw one of his knives at her, stopping Magni from attacking Midoriya. What the hell was that for, Spinner? He was on the priority kill list, Magni yelled angrily. Shigaraki is the one that wants him dead, Spinner responded. Yeah, and he's the reason we're here, Magni stated irritatingly. But that boy is someone Stain wished to save, which means he was deemed worthy of being called a true hero, Spinner argued. If Stain spared him, then. But before Spinner could finish his sentence, Mandalay planted her foot on the reptilian villain's face, kicking him to the ground while Tiger struck Magni in the head with a left hook, knocking them over as well. About time I got a solid hit in, Mandalay said before panting in exhaustion as she retreated to her thoughts. Can't stop the boy, but I can relay his message. Listen, we've discovered one of the villain's targets. Mandalay explained to everyone via telepath. It's a student, Katsuki Bakugou of Class A. Bakugou, wherever you are, avoid combat if possible and stick to a group. Eddie and Venom had heard each of Mandalay's telepathic messages as he sprinted across the forest floor. He knew to avoid the part that was on fire due to his weakness to the element as he activated his sensory power to try and find the students. Luckily, they picked up two outlines who appeared to be students from Class 1B, while they could also see a third figure of similar height standing in between them. Venom saw the two students move towards the figure in the center but heard gunshots ring across the sky. Venom looked carefully and saw that the third figure was holding a gun who fired off another shot at the same student, to which the lethal protector realized that this was in the area of the forest covered in that gas they saw from before. Venom then swiftly took off at impressive speeds and headed towards the sound of the gunshot. In the epicenter of the gas, the villain known as Mustard had fired his first shot against Tetsu, destroying the gas mask he was provided and prevented his attack from hitting while also stunning him for a few seconds. Kendo meanwhile had moved around the two in order to position herself for a sneak attack against the young villain. I saw you on TV during the sports festival. You can make your skin hard. That means you're bulletproof, Mustard said with a slight chuckle, while Tetsu recovered and tried not to breathe any more of Mustard's gas by covering his nose and mouth. Doesn't really matter, because now it's just a matter of how long you can hold your breath in this toxic miasma. Seriously, he pulled a gun, and he took out my mask in one shot. What's this shorty's deal? And why is he wearing a school uniform? Tetsu thought angrily before charging at Mustard again. He's probably my age. Mustard had fired another shot before Tetsu could get close enough and knocked him back a few feet again. What? Do you think you're the Terminator? Even if you can steal yourself, charging in is a fool's move. Mustard taunted. Shouldn't you be smarter if you go to UA? Don't be so rash, use your head. As he was talking, he pointed his gun towards Kendo as she tried to move closer towards him. Tetsu saw this and quickly dived in front of his classmate and took the shot for her. But now his hardened skin had started to crack and a small amount of blood splattered in the air and on his head. Or you're not worth killing. Tetsu, Kendo cried out. It's no good. Retreat. Tetsu yelled. Ha 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 ha. 2-on-1 and you're banking on a surprise attack. Mustard said mockingly. What a simple plan, I expected better. No, you're bleeding. Kendo gasped. I'm fine. Just get out of here. Tetsu argued. I'm producing and controlling this gas, but that's not all. The gas is showing me your movements with its fluctuations. In other words, you can't hide from me. Mustard explained, talking over the two students, but as he was about to sneak away into his gas, he sensed someone else moving within his gas and immediately shot his gun in the direction they were coming from. However, Mustard noticed that this new target was still moving towards him. What? Impossible. Mustard thought frantically before he turned and fired two more shots in the same direction. The person he shot at stopped in their tracks before slowly walking towards Mustard, revealing that it was the lethal protector himself, Venom, who had two bullets in between his teeth. Venom then spat both of the bullets out before grinning at the young villain. Phew, you're that vigilante that Shigaraki wanted dead, Mustard exclaimed, shocked by how none of the bullets shot at him even did so much as slow the symbiote down. Well, aren't you just adorable, you and that pea shooter of yours, Venom remarked before he created a tendril and smacked the gun out of Mustard's hand with it. Without giving Mustard time to react, Venom wrapped the tendril around Mustard's body and pulled the gas-themed villain towards him before he struck Mustard with a strong left hook to the face that shattered his gas mask. Mustard was knocked to the ground, making the miasma of gas disappear from the area, preventing it from harming Kendo and Tetsu further. Serves you right, you little punk, Eddie said inside of Venom, looking to see the Mustard had light brown messy hair and a broken nose and teeth. Hey, we had him, Tetsu shouted at Venom as he stood back up. Yeah, sure you did, Venom said sarcastically. Wait, Venom, is that you? Kendo asked, shocked by the symbiote's current form. And that must mean Eddie is inside of you. I'm here, Eddie said, as Venom opened half of his face up to show him inside, to which Tetsu realized something. Wait, now I remember. You, get back to the camp and help any students you find along the way, but don't engage in combat, Eddie ordered before Venom closed his face and darted off into the forest. Kendo and Tetsu were speechless, especially given how quickly Venom defeated Mustard, given that the teenage villain nearly killed them both. Rather than argue any further, they decided to listen to Eddie and went to go back to camp. Hundreds of meters away in a clearing within the forest, Bakugou and Todoroki were engaged in combat against one of the villains, a cannibalistic murderer in a gimp outfit called Moonfish, whose teeth could turn into extending blades that act both and weapons and appendages for movement. Todoroki had created a wall of ice to defend against his attacks while carrying the unconscious Class 1B student Suburaba, though Bakugou was frustrated at not being able to directly fight. Flesh pieces of meat rag. Moonfish groaned before yelling as he unleashed more bladed teeth against Todoroki's ice wall. One of the bladed teeth pierced through the ice wall and nearly hit Todoroki, but he dodged it and closed up the wall with another layer of ice. Teeth attacks? Seriously, Bakugou said frustratingly. It's time to blast this freak with everything I've got. You can't, Todoroki protested. If the trees burn, just cover them with ice. Stupid, Bakugou countered. A big explosion will impair my vision though. I may not be able to see the fire, Todoroki explained. And how are you going to get close to him anyway? As Bakugou tried to think of a solution, he and Todoroki watched as something moving with impressive speed tackled Moonfish from behind, knocking him over the ice wall and past the three students. What the hell was that? Todoroki exclaimed in disbelief. Something hit that bastard villain and sent him flying past us, Bakugou yelled as he turned in the direction where Moonfish and the projectile landed. The projectile, or rather person that did so, was none other than Venom, who had Moonfish pinned to the ground as he grasped the cannibal's head with his large clawed hand. Moonfish was trying to use his quirk in order for the symbiote to let go of his face, but his bladed teeth wouldn't penetrate through Venom's hand. Tickles, Venom taunted before he slammed Moonfish's face into the ground, then afterwards repeatedly smashed it again and again until the villain's teeth all shattered, reducing the cannibal to having nothing but a mouth full of gum and a bloody face, which made the symbiote scoff. Pussy, Venom dropped Moonfish before he turned towards Bakugou and Todoroki, who were both confused and cautious given that they now recognized who he was, or at least to the public. Who are you? And why have you come here? Better yet, how do you even know we were here? Todoroki asked defensively. It's me, you idiot, Venom yelled angrily, catching the two boys off guard. Venom, you're the vigilante from Hasu, Todoroki said in surprise. I knew something was off about you and that foreigner from the start. Bakugou roared. Hey, I'm right here, you know, Eddie shouted from inside Venom. That sounded like Brock, Todoroki said as he looked to try and find the source of his voice. Eddie is inside me. He provides the body while I provide the power, Venom explained with a chuckle. Before any of them could say another word, there appeared to be a moving wave or eruption of dirt and trees in the distance that caught everyone's attention as it got closer and closer to their location. There, I see ice, the sound of Midoriya's voice yelled. Midoriya, Eddie said in confusion. Bakugou, Todoroki, one of you, give us some light, Shoji shouted as he ran towards them. Shoji then leaped out of the way of Dark Shadow's next attack, which shattered Todoroki's ice wall. Venom stood in front of the three students and made a shield from his arms to block any incoming ice and debris that was heading in their direction. Kaken, Midoriya yelled, which made Bakugou's eyes widen as he gritted his teeth. Shoji and Midoriya. And is that Takoyami? Todoroki said surprised. Holy shit. That kid's not symbiote is huge. Bigger than any of the ones I've seen on my homeworld. We need some light now. He's out of control, Shoji exclaimed with a tentacle that had a mouth at the end, before avoiding another attack from Dark Shadow. He's attacking blindly. I'll use my fire, Todoroki said as he put down the unconscious Suburaba. Damn it, stupid Deku, stupid bird, Bakugou yelled as he and Todoroki rushed over to Dark Shadow. Don't follow us, Parasite, unless you want to get burned. Parasite, come back here and say that to my face, Venom yelled as he watched the students go off to subdue Dark Shadow. Not enough, not enough, Dark Shadow screamed with rage as he tried to strike at the students in front of him. However, Bakugou and Todoroki used their quirks to generate sources of light, dispelling Dark Shadow's anger and forcing him to retreat back inside Takoyami. Once again, I'm a terrible matchup for you, bird boy, Bakugou remarked before he and Todoroki stopped using their quirks. Thanks, you saved me, Takoyami said as he tried to catch his breath. We could barely defend against that guy, Todoroki said as he looked over to Moonfish, but Venom beat him without much effort, especially given that his bladed teeth couldn't even pierce him. My friend, are you okay? Shoji asked Takoyami. You did what we needed you to. Takoyami remembered Midoriya's words to him when Dark Shadow was berserk, which only made him feel more guilty. Shoji, I apologize. You too, Midoriya, I'm still far too immature, Takoyami said. Anger consumed me. I let my quirk take over. The influence of the darkness combined with my fury spurred Dark Shadow into a frenzy, until it got so strong I couldn't contain it. and I ended up hurting Shoji. We'll deal with that later, Shoji simply said. That's what you'd say if our roles were reversed. Yeah, I agree, and quit spouting all of that edgy melodrama. This isn't some grimdark fanfic, Venom exclaimed as he approached the group of students. Eddie, Venom, Midoriya said, surprised by the lethal protector's presence. If you two are here, then that means you took care of Muscular. That's right, we also took out some kid with a gun and a gas mask, but he was pretty weak, Venom said bluntly before opening up his face to reveal Eddie. You okay, kid? Eddie asked. Looks like you need a hospital. I was running on adrenaline before, but the pain in my broken, twisted arm got to me, and I couldn't move anymore because of it, Midoriya replied. But thankfully Shoji was here to carry me, and we were able to lead a berserk dark shadow over here so that Kaken and Todoroki could quell his anger. Well, I'm glad to see that you're safe, and that we were able to take down 2 other villains along the way to minimize damage, Eddie said, before looking to the ground. I know you guys have every right to be upset with me, but right now we should get everyone back to camp. Agreed, we can settle disputes later, Todoroki said, to which the others excluding Bakugou nodded in agreement. Okay, I don't know if you heard Mandalay, but I found out the villains are after Kaken, Midoriya explained. Bakugou, are they trying to kill him? Why? Takoyami asked. I'm not sure, but I think Eddie is right, we should head to camp. It's the safest place now so long as Vlad King and Aizawa have regrouped there, Midoriya replied. I understand. So our mission is to get Bakugou back to safety by serving as his protectors, Takoyami said. It's possible that the Pussycats are still fighting in the clearing. Going that way would draw the attention of the villains, plus it's longer. We should cut straight across, Midoriya explained. We don't know how many enemies there are, we might come across some by chance, Takoyami commented. We can use Shoji's search ability and Todoroki's freezing power, and if Takoyami's okay with it, we can always use Dark Shadow now that we can actually control him, Midoriya explained. Honestly, with a group like this, we could probably go up against All Might. This kid needs to really stop saying such cringe, Venom commented with a groan before reforming his face over Eddie's. I'd be fine by myself, Bakugou objected. We'll surround you as we walk, Todoroki argued. I don't need any of your protection, damn it, Bakugou yelled. Well then, good luck and stay together, Eddie said from inside of Venom. You're not coming with us, Todoroki asked. We're going to fight the other villains and find more students so they can get back to camp, Venom exclaimed. You are all in a group, so we don't need to worry about you, given what you said before, Broccoli Boy. Alright, but be careful you two, one of the villains has a fire quirk, Midoriya said with a nod. Venom then just gave the students a thumbs up before he dashed off into the forest looking for both villains to fight and students to rescue. Let's go, Shoji said as the group of students started to move out. Don't ignore me, Bakugou shouted as he followed behind. Just make sure you keep up, Todoroki said as he kept carrying Tsuburaba. Don't tell me what to do, Bakugou yelled. We'll get everyone back safely, Midoriya thought. If we can do that, that's all that matters. Eddie, Venom, when this is all over, we'll need to talk. So alright folks, that's all for today. Stay tuned for part 10. Do subscribe, like and share for more such videos. Also check out the story and author's Ultimate Demon Beast 65 and Somebody on FANFICTIONnet. Press the bell icon to be notified first on release. See you in the next video, till then goodbye.